So he's the fourth friend of mine who'd committed suicide in
I'm
the
so
dating
sorry. I
industry.
wasn't, I would have killed myself for sure.
Julien Blanc effectively turned his back on the game after he got married. Every time I have sex, I don't take a fucking video. Like, where is this fucking mindset coming from? Yeah,
He's an idiot and he's too big of a pussy to debate you.
We've gone
story
from
teller.
fishing to fisting.
Maybe one in every 50 person would have some level of listening skills that is proficient to take things into depth.
Michael, you're so brilliant. I make you an honorary Jew. I have the power. I just
The hundred or whatever women you slept with. What do you remember? And he remembered like maybe one or two because he then actually really liked the girls and then he dated them. So everyone else was essentially a blur. They were just literally not even a memory. They were like a figment of his imagination.
The only body count that matters to me are the number of men whose lives I've changed. They're children in the world because of my work.
Alrighty, guys, we are back. Dating coach panel. We got some panelists here. Some will join a little later. Got some timing stuff going on. But anyway, Daniel Colbert is here. Where are you calling in from?
From London. So it's nice and late here, which is why I've got my tea at the ready to keep me busy.
Spiked with some Red Bull or something. Michael, where
Don't
are
tell
you
people.
calling
Don't
from?
tell people.
I'm calling from Norway, so it's pretty late here too. I think it's even 1 hour later than in London.
I think it is actually, yeah.
Alrighty, I'm gonna start with this pretty serious question. Let's get straight into it. Um, Reflecting on the passing of former dating coach Jonathan O'Halloran, how do you think we can better address the stigma of mental health struggles among men in this community? Not just for students, but for coaches too.
That's quite a deep question. Oh, you've even got it here on the screen. Reflecting on the passing of former dating coach Jonathan Allen. How do you think we just see that? Because I'm also quite a visual person when I'm also thinking about certain things. Um, I guess really just bringing more awareness to mental health in general. So I mean, like Johnny had a lot of personal things going on over the years. This wasn't something that just happened as of late and then just snowballed. I mean, he had problems his entire life from bullying to I think falling into like the wrong crowd of people growing up, to just sort of being abused, to definitely feeling suicidal and feeling very lonely and isolated just from not being able to socialize properly with people. And if anything, the time that he was here, he really did at least bring a lot of awareness to that and just gave a lot of advice in really what guys can do to be working on those particular things. And in like the thousands of videos that he put out, especially in after the years that we worked together, I think really drew a lot more attention to the kind of problems that a lot of guys really are facing that maybe they're just afraid to talk about. So like I think like in fact one of the main ones would be like why a lot of people get into the dating industry to begin with, which is why they struggle with socializing. They've had a really shitty dating life, and most importantly, I think they have struggled to understand how to actually connect with people, how to have conversations, even at the very least. And so, at least by at least coming into this community and meeting people that could teach that and could also support each other with that, especially in the groups that Johnny had made, which really just focused on the social anxiety side of things. I think really had created the biggest impact of all. But I mean, as long as guys are constantly talking about, uh, I think issues of isolation, of feeling lonely, even putting aside the idea of that, oh, they want to have a girlfriend or they struggle to date women. I think just a lot of guys need just genuine support and people that they can speak to about their own personal problems. And even if they don't want to open up and talk about things that they've got going on in their lives that they're struggling with, I think just having even a friend or just someone around at the very least is something that people just don't get enough of. There's certainly a big stigma around the idea of supporting guys, and I guess even over the years I've seen less and less of it. But Johnny was certainly the one who kind of offered that guidance in, you know, what guys can do to support each other, just be there for each other. If someone's got a problem, just to be able to listen to them. Don't even have to give them advice, but just be there to hear them out. And even that, at the very least, could be like the one thing that helps them to overcome any feelings of depression or even suicide. Yeah, it's a difficult question. Sorry, it's quite a difficult question to specifically answer. But yeah, I think that's probably as best as I can do with that.
No, I think you made, you know, a lot of good points there. What I've seen in many dating coaches or people that have been in the pickup artist community for quite some time is their own identity, so to speak, because many times many of the methods that have been out there is messing with your nervous system, because you are actually relying on certain routines. They're going to make you achieve a certain result with women, for example. But if we're going to look at the science in communication, for example, as you mentioned, like being social, being able to communicate, having a normal conversation, that requires a certain amount of cognitive flexibility. And that cognitive flexibility is something you have to learn in a certain way in order to expand your cognitive engagement. And I've seen a lot of people coming into the opposite direction and don't promote cognitive engagement and flexibility. Instead, limit it because they are relying on repeated actions for a certain result in a complex area. And when we're talking about interpersonal communication theories, a complex area is conversations with people. So having a right type of conversation with people is pretty hard unless you have been pretty schooled of how to have a conversation. And I believe that a lot of guys struggle with their social skills in order to evolve. And I think that is one of the main reasons why they feel like something is missing. I mean, I've seen a lot of guys thinking they are very good with women. But as soon as they're going away from just talking and doing routines to women, they become like pretty awkward because they haven't really learned how to socialize with everyone. So I really get the part of the contrast between being good at one specific thing and then completely crash in another. While these things, basically social skills, are like within the same realm. You just took a fork of it and made it like a performance, but you're not really there. You get my point. And I've seen so many guys also being practicing pickup artist methodologies, and they try to keep a certain frame, they try to keep a certain route. But as soon as they step out from that route, they become instantly awkward in front of the girl they're talking with, or the girl's friends, or even her parents, if they actually went somewhat far with the relationship, even though it's short term. So I can definitely see a big problem here. I do and strongly believe that there is no such thing as pure dating skills. Dating skills is just a fork of social skills realm. And if we're going to look at every scientific studies that have been made in terms of, you know, dating and attracting women, is actually belonging to the realm of emotional connection and building relationship, which belongs to the interpersonal communication area. So that is why I believe a lot of guys getting confused, because what they have learned doesn't really match the reality socially.
Yeah, no, I can definitely agree with that. In fact, you brought up quite an interesting point, which was about with when guys learn like lines and routines as opposed to actually learning proper social skills and how to effectively communicate and express themselves. And this was, I think, probably something that Johnny was very good at. That he was just teaching guys how to, go up to someone and just be really honest and authentic and just say what's on your mind and and be essentially what you see is what you get. Whereas with a lot of the pickup stuff, yes, you're using lines and routines that have been like trialed and tested and they work, but they're not actually really giving guys the understanding of how to have a conversation and how to connect with people because they're just saying something that other people have said and works for them. And even in fact reminds me of when like the day game blueprint came out. So at the time, like I was working with Johnny and we were out filming and you had daygame.com create the day game blueprint, which was essentially modeled after YAD. So when everyone was going around saying, excuse me, can I just tell you something really quickly? What I noticed about you was XYZ. It was a great crutch or a way for guys to get their foot in the door with going out and speaking to people. And hell, for the guys who were incredibly unsociable, who always complained that they didn't know what to say, it at least got them to be proactive and do something. But what the wall was that everyone kept on hitting was that then they were just saying something over and over again, and they weren't really learning how to have a conversation with people. They weren't learning how to actively listen to people. So I remember there would be many occasions, and not just even with Johnny, but with other dating coaches that I was filming with over the years, where we would be walking down like Oxford Street or Regent Street or wherever else in London, and we would see and hear guys who were practicing literally doing pickup, and you would see how they're standing. Like I always found it funny that I would know I'd actually have my own game that when I was watching people doing approaching on the street, the way and how that they were their body language was, I was able to kind of guess what dating coach they were probably watching or which one of my clients that they were watching, just because of how they were standing. So like if they put their toe up, if they leaned on their back foot, then I knew that they were probably following like Tom Torero. Or if they were putting like their hands in their pockets, then I knew that they were like copying Johnny and so on. Which, again, is great and all that guys are essentially taking this influence from other coaches, but they weren't really figuring out what works for them, what makes them comfortable with how they're presenting themselves body language wise. And again, particularly with the conversation side of things, if they were just going around and saying like, oh, what I noticed about you was XYZ, or that they were following a strict model that most certainly wasn't working on every single girl that they were speaking to, which is something that I don't think a lot of guys understood. And even with how they were articulating what they were saying as well, I've seen like the day game blueprint over the years, people seem to be like less and less enthusiastic about the words that they're saying, that now it almost sounds like someone's been handed like a piece of paper and they've got the writing on, and they've like a coach has sort of said to them like, yeah, just read this, and then the girl will be absolutely like wooed over what you've just said, and she'll give you a number and whatnot. And you just hear it, how when people are speaking, they're not really connecting with the words that they're saying. And I think my concern for me is that it could end up getting to a point that guys will just be like saying stuff they don't mean, they don't care about, and then the girls aren't going to feel that either, because women most certainly feel the emotion that the guy is expressing as well. And if he doesn't feel the words that he's saying, then she's going to just sort of walk away and just be like, yeah, I think he's just sort of said this way too many times to people. I don't think he actually means what he says. And, guys are then losing that ability to actually connect with people, which is why I'm then not surprised at all that guys feel even more alone. And why even with dating coaches that I've known over the years that I've had to counsel and support as well, and even the coaches that I know who've also taken their lives, because Johnny wasn't the first or second or third for me. He was the fourth person that I knew who'd taken his life. And you would have thought that for coaches who have like the ultimate James Bond or Austin Powers sort of lifestyle, that they can go around the world, they can meet women and stuff, you would have thought that they would have the most happiest of lives, they would be the most content. But I find that they are probably the most loneliest. And and I'll say that quite broadly because it's not fair to put every coach in that bracket. But I think guys overall, they're losing that ability to connect and hold on to that connection, or just mean what they say.
Oh, I absolutely resonate with that. Just yesterday I was having a little discussion with Sean Michael, who runs Free Second Rule. He used to work with Mystery, and he was highlighting the fact that a lot of coaches come into this space, and well, a lot of them may or may not be qualified. Coaches tend to have the expectation that they can make a full career out of this somewhat immediately. Whereas,
Yeah.
like, even with, he was saying, even with tennis coaches, that could take 4 or 5 years or even more to earn like a full-time equivalent earnings career out of doing the coaching itself. As for dating coaching, it's like these guys might have their own YouTube channels or might not even have their own YouTube channels. There's so much work that goes into this, especially when I look at what I did with Game Global. I spent 6 years, more than 6 years, I think, doing this now. And only recently I got to 10,000. And now things are really starting to pay off, but it really did take that long. And I originally it was only like a side thing, a hobby. I had no real intention to make a career out of it. But that leads into my second point, which I took from what you were saying. I have the feeling that you're basically talking about how one's personality may not align with the words they're saying, the kinds of templates, lines, routines that coaches are recommending. I hate the pickup line of day gamers on the street when they say, "Hey, I saw you from over there, and I just thought you looked at me." I'm never gonna fucking say that. That does
Oh,
not
it
line up
makes me
with my
heave.
personality.
Yeah.
There's no fucking way I will ever fucking say that because that does not line up with my style, my kind of personality. I will never say that. So I lean way more into the natural game rather than the technical game kind of thing. And what I has been kind of like a hot topic on the channel in the last few months is these routines don't tend to be authentic, but I suppose the coaches like Mystery are creating them as a like here's some inspiration, but what we can't do, what coaches can't do like Mystery is here are 1 million lines. That's never gonna fucking happen because if they're just examples for people to lead from, but some guys are taking these word for word, and they might not even be like they could be DHV stories or something, which have fucking nothing to do with them or their lifestyle, and it makes no sense. I have such a feeling that if something does not line up with your personality, not just in dating, but think of people's careers. Most people, plenty of studies on this, plenty of polls. Most people are unhappy with the job or career that they have. And I suppose part of the reason, or maybe even the main reason behind that, is it probably doesn't line up with their personality. My personality is not, no disrespect to people who work at McDonald's. McDonald's is always the obvious victim to go for to stab at when making comments like this, but my personality does not line up with flipping burgers, to give you a very overused metaphor for comparison, but that wouldn't line up with me. But what I'm doing now, that lines up with me. But even so, it does not necessarily mean that it is heaven. But I'll just leave that there. Those are some good thoughts. Any other comments on this?
Yeah.
Well, I do have some points actually when it comes to methodologies, so to speak, routines and different, dating methods, so to speak. And when we look at how men are acting today, that basically means nothing. So if we go from the perspective of doing absolutely nothing to doing something, yes, basically everything works. It doesn't matter what system you have. If you do something compared with nothing, obviously you will still see some kind of results. However, if we are coming from the perspective that people are doing something, men are doing something, now we can actually measure the methods in between. And I feel like there's a lot of methods that are based on science. And when I mean science, I mean when they are equipped with a framework for them to evolve and become better persons in conversations, that will actually be a learning process that's going to make them cognitive flexible with everyone over time. Then we have another bracket where you're going to be very good at one particular thing and create a habit of doing one particular thing, but it limits your brain's ability to be flexible in other areas. So something that I have been studying a lot is neuroscience, for example. And there is something called experience-dependent plasticity. This is when you're actually preparing the brain for complex situations, like conversations. And in order to be able to go into the area of making the brain develop to become smarter, better emotional quota, or we used to call it conversational intelligence, CIQ. In order to be good at that, we really need to train the brain in the right direction. And it's not by learning routines that you're going to repeat over and over again so it become a habit. It's actually to listen. Once you start listening to people, you start teaching your brain to handle all sort of complex situation in a conversation. And from the realm of communication, we're mainly talking about three types of conversations that actually taking it to different depths. So the first level is actually transactional conversations. These are about sharing and receiving information only, like asking simple questions and giving answers. It's very practical, it's very straightforward. It could also be sort of, you can call it small talk in a certain sense, but it is definitely on the surface-based level. Then we have something called positional conversations. That is like level 2 in conversations. And now we start talking about sharing strong opinions or defending ideas, different kind of more in depth, more like what people are thinking about things. So many times this positional conversation is more about perhaps convincing others rather than being open of their views. But now we're going into the third level. That is where things are happening. That is what is called transformational conversations. And now we're talking about empathetic communication skills, where we're going to listen empathetically to the other person. Once we start understanding not only what other people are thinking and doing, but the underlying reason of why they're doing certain things, now we get into the area of truly understand the other person. And if we can communicate to them that we actually getting them, we not only understand them, but we're making sure that they understand that we understood them. Now we are in the base of training our brain for this complexity of conversations to be able to handle it better and better and better the more we're practicing it. That is going to increase two things: your cognitive flexibility and your cognitive engagement when you're interacting with people. and that is going to make you smarter and have conversation effortlessly the more you are talking with people. But if you don't have the right tools and the right listening strategies, you will never really get there. You will just be someone who wants to talk, and when someone is talking, you just wait, you listen to respond, you just want to respond back instead of listening to understand. There is a huge difference between those two. So I think that if men really want to be good with women, they have to start learning real listening skills first, how to have real conversations, how to ask the right questions, to get into depth and talk about things that matters. If we're going to look at the neuroscience department as well, we have seen that the scientific evidence is very clear that when women are talking, that is when they feel at most. Dopamine release, serotonin release, epinephrine release, endorphin release, oxytocin release are all associated with emotional bonding and attraction. Same what men are feeling when they see beautiful women. But when women see beautiful men, not much are happening neuroscientifically. So that is why it's so important to get into the depth where we know triggers women's emotional centra and those neurotransmitters that are connected with those emotions that we want to evoke. And we're doing it with empathy. This, what I'm talking about now, is not someone or me that invented. Interpersonal communication have been studied by basically all the universities over the world since 1950s. And the main Ivy League schools like Harvard, Stanford, University of California, Berkeley College have been rigorously studying interpersonal communication. So this is what is actually valid when it comes to build attraction and build relationships with women as a man.
Also, add on something discussed earlier about alignment of personality to the things we say, the things we do, the things that are around us. Here's a famous example. Jim Carrey said, people noticed over the years, in recent years, Jim Carrey seems to be like more depressed or like less Jim Carrey-ish. And he was asked on some show or something or interview, some kind of question, and he said eventually he got tired of playing the character of Jim Carrey because like throughout the 90s, 2000s and whatever, he was playing all these fucking hilarious characters. But it seems that over time he got tired of that, maybe because it didn't really align with his true self. Even though our perception of him, he's not a friend of mine. I don't know him, how he actually is, but our perception of him is only based on what we see in movies, in interviews, that kind of thing. We don't know the real him unless we know him very personally. That's the kind of thing we might not be aware of, but yeah. Any other comments on this before we move on to the next one?
A first note about the personality thing. I believe that many times guys really want to be themselves, but they just don't know how to be themselves. And when we are talking as men to women, for example, we're trying to, at least if we're going to look at most of the dating methods out there, we're trying to tell a DHV story, deliver higher value story, or we're trying to show that we are funny, playful, flirtatious, as all those kind of things, in order to actually evoke emotions in women. But the truth is, I believe that most guys actually would like to be able to talk and find out about what thoughts she has, what perspective she has, and having that type of conversation that actually are based on depth. I think men want that in their personality. But in order to get into that depth, they really need to learn conversational skills. And if they don't learn conversational skills, but they go with other methods instead, they sort of not using their real personality to find out about that attractive women that they feel something for. Instead, they use other things. And now they cannot really present themselves and their personality fully, maybe only 20% of it. And as we know also, people are not so eager to listen to other people, but they are eager to talk to other people, specifically women. So if we men could tailor our personality to, instead of thinking so much about our self-awareness, but put our attention completely towards her. And our mission now is to find out about her, not only what she thinks about things, but also the underlying why she thinks what she's thinking about, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if anything, guys need to learn, I think, to be a bit more curious with women that they're speaking to. So even with what I mentioned before, like, you know, it's just as a stepping stone to get guys out the house. Lines and routines, sure, they're okay, but ultimately, guys need to learn to have actual conversations with people and be curious about the people that they're speaking to, so they can have very individualized conversations, and respect the fact that every person or every woman that you're going to speak to, you're going to have a very different conversation. There'll be different levels of attraction there. There'll be people who are going to be in good moods. There'll be women who are in not the best of moods. And it's just adapting to every conversation that you have. And the best guys that I know who get results with women, they learn to kind of just go with the flow with it and ask the particular questions that leads to showing genuine interest in the person that they're speaking to, which you don't really get when you're using lines and routines. And I know, and I'm sure you guys will agree with me on this, but I know that if I were to use someone else's lines and routines myself, and then I met a girl who then really liked me, she's not liking me for me. She's liking this alter ego that I've created who's using these lines and routines. So actually, she's just fallen for the dating coach that she got them from. She's not actually fallen for me. She's just, again, fallen for words from someone else. Whereas if I've had a conversation with someone, and it doesn't have to be the most smoothest, but if I've shown genuine interest in the person, I've built curiosity, and I've just shown how genuine I've been to her, and she likes me for that, I think there's a huge difference in the kind of relationships and learning curve that guys can get from that with building social skills. And whether they want relationships long term or not, I think just being able to have proper, down to earth, decent conversations with people is the thing that ultimately builds that development for guys, and in time gets them whatever results that they want.
Yeah, I think guys really need to hear this. This is good stuff. I completely agree with you. This is so fundamental. This is unbelievable. It's almost like the game is only like, maybe it could be some kind of spice on the top of the food, but the foundation is conversations. I mean, if you don't know how to have good conversation with people, and I'm not talking only with women, with people, and that includes women as well. Well, I mean, every man would make himself a huge favor to learn that first, how to just speak and interact with people, and then also understand what elements in conversations actually gives influence, what makes people feel at best in conversations. As far as I know, being curious and making the other person talk, when that guy is talking, that guy or the woman is going to feel at best in conversation. It doesn't matter how good storyteller you are, it doesn't matter how good you are at jokes. According to robust scientific evidence, when she is talking, that is when she's having the best time in conversations by far. If we're going to take that as a foundational base, then we are actually quite in a good area to actually evolve, so to speak. Being curious, as you mentioned, is one of the main mindset guys need to have. Being curious towards the other person, and the behaviors that are going to be aligned to that mindset would be to actually ask the right questions and then listen very carefully and ask follow-up questions to get into depth. I'm not saying that we should not share something about ourselves. We're doing it in between, but the focus should be on her. The spotlight should be on her. And it becomes so much easier for men to handle a conversation when we have the direction and the goal to focus about her and finding out what she thinks about things and what, and something about herself that goes into depth. That becomes a lot easier. And now we're not talking about any game here now. We're talking about having a real conversations in between. So yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
Alrighty. Next one. What does inner game mean to you personally?
I think inner game for me really comes down to how I feel about myself. So how do I see myself and feel about myself in the world or environment around me? And I think even probably asking the other question, do I care about the influence of people around me and how they make me feel about myself as well? Because I've known guys who can still be very confident and have a lot of belief in themselves, but still not get the greatest results with women. And then I've known guys who don't really believe in themselves, or they just have this image of themselves in a way that if they just literally just like tweaked this thought by like a single degree, then suddenly they could have like the best results in the world. And it kind of reminds me in a way of like with just some of the dating coaches when I've filmed them doing like their client transformations, and you've had guys who they have like no self-belief. They think so lowly about themselves, which is in a way is kind of why they've gone to a dating coach anyway in the first place, to help them, to show them or get them to see something that they weren't able to see before. And just literally by putting them in that environment that just challenges that limiting belief, and then suddenly they do end up meeting someone who genuinely does like them. Even if the guy didn't have the best clothing on, or he wasn't very fit or athletic or whatever, but just some like small experience that he's had that just shows him the potential that he could be. Yeah, I think that's what inner game means to me. Just like how you see yourself in the environment that you're in, and does the environment around you influence you in a positive or negative way?
Yeah, it sounds good actually. It is what it is. For me personally, I mean, if we're going to see what actually changed me in terms of inner game, I mean, I've been in this game for a long time. I mean, all the way back to David D'Angelo's time with W dating, to mystery, to Ross Jeffries, to all types of methodologies. But I was also studying at the university in the same time, and when I did my master's in communication and behavioral science, something came up to me over and over again, and that is the listening skills. If you want to influence people, if you really want to be good with people, you need to learn to listen. And I was thinking like, okay, so I mean, I've done a lot of other types of inner game stuff where I've been focusing about me a lot, like how I feel and what is my limiting beliefs here and there, how can I work with them, how can I reframe them, and so on. But the truth is, I was still the same person. If I go out and interact with people, if I go and talk with women, I will still be the same. Even though I'll be working with my history of things and my limited beliefs of things, I was still the same guy that couldn't really connect with people, couldn't really connect with women. But then over and over again, during my master thesis, all the master courses and modules I made, I started to pay attention to like, okay, so if I want to be good with people, what is actually valid here then? Listening skills came up again. And once I start, taking that part, listening skills, and implement it into my life, I noticed that when I interact with people to feel good with people around, it shouldn't be so much about me and my self-awareness. It should be about them. And I came across amazing quotes that have a lot of scientific backing. Quotes like, if you want to be interesting, you have to be interested towards the other person. You have to learn how to listen to understand, not listen to respond. And I start doing that. And I remember one time at work, I was working as a manager on the ship that time. And there was one guy that I couldn't speak with at all. We just didn't like each other. But one day, he was sitting in the mess. And I was thinking that I'm going to give it a chance. So I just asked him, how have you been? And he said, good. And then now I remember, if I'm a good listener, I should actually explore what he means with things. When he said good, I don't really know what he meant. So I took that and asked him, when you say good, what do you mean? Bam. Suddenly, he started telling me that he's living in Brazil and he's pretty sad now because he has to go back to work on the ship. And then what I did there is, okay, I'm going to use something called conversational threading. I'm going to listen to what he said, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to ask more about it, a follow-up question. So for example, he said Brazil. I took Brazil and asked him, okay, but tell me, when you think about Brazil and living there, what are the really good stuff to do over there? That itself changed his whole mentality, his whole mood and everything. And he stopped talking about what he think about Brazil. He talked about why he went to Brazil. He talked what he liked to do that on his day-by-day basis. He told me what he liked to do that on vacations, on weekends, and so on. And he became so triggered about him expressing what he thought about Brazil to me, that it ended up with him inviting me to Brazil. He would stand for the living cost. He would show me around the city, and he would show me other cities, and he would do a lot for me if I come into Brazil to visit him. And now I came from not liking him and he not liking me to that area. That was a realization for me that, wow, if I could learn how to have real conversation with people and then really apply that as my go-to, like a new me, like a better version of me, and being myself more than ever before, maybe I can actually solve all those inner issues, because the results of influence, like making people happy, making people engaged, making people feel good, that made me feel good. So what happened if I use that with women? I started, and it worked amazingly, really amazingly. And from that point, it's basically solved all my inner game, also the inner game problems that I had. I feel like that part was what actually worked. Doing something that you know is going to give you great results, if that makes sense. Because all in all, we are all social beings. We're living in a social environment. We need to be able to have conversation with people. We need to learn how to communicate in a proper way. If we don't know that, of course, we're going to have a lot of issues, of course, with ourselves, how we position ourselves in the society, and so on.
Just imagine if society just didn't talk to each other, if everyone in society just had no fucking voice, the amount of chaos there would be. Like, based on the example you were giving, if we were left to our own thoughts, our thoughts could be intoxicated from external influences, and then that affects us. And if we're left alone with that, that can be very consequential. I don't know to what extent, but it's just like the bigger picture. If society had no communication at all, how crazy it would be, in a very dark, negative way. If ever, it's like anarchism, but very, very extreme. But that's just like a weird thought I had. On to the next one. What are some things in a general pickup artist mindset and community that are unhealthy for people's inner game?
it is to actually learn something that inhibit your ability to evolve mentally. So if you are going to, as we spoke before about, if you're going to rely on routines and scripted games, you're not teaching your brain to handle complex situations. Your cognitive flexibility will be less, will be hurt by it. So what happens? Yeah, you're going to create a habit, because when you start practicing routines, you go into the habituation process of doing the same thing over and over and over again. That actually, if you want to solely rely on that, you're going to hurt your flexibility. So I mean, a lot of guys to hearing this are probably, can recognize this situation, that when they're not doing game, they are way off the chart, as in a negative way. They just have to stick to that routine-based thing, saying the same things, using the same jokes, using the same flirtatious techniques. Otherwise, they just can't survive socially. And I think that is very, very harmful. We need to teach guys to have cognitive flexibility. That means that they need to be able to comprehend any conversation with anyone, including hot women, of course. And in order to be able to do that, well, they need to practice with strong intent. But that is what I believe is what they have to do. Scripted games and routines are very harmful. That's what I believe.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. In fact, I think for me, I think it's guys need to decide what they want out of the industry. You get, or over the years, I mean, I've seen thousands upon thousands of guys like go through to work with dating coaches. And certainly over the years, there have been coaches that have essentially said to guys whose mindset was that they wanted to have relationships or they wanted to get married one day and have kids. They've had coaches say to them like, no, you want to be single. Like, don't get into a relationship, have a dating life, sleeping with women is the ultimate aphrodisiac. That's what, makes you a man, and all this sort of, malarkey and stuff over the years. And I think, unfortunately, what I have seen is then that guys have been essentially sold the idea that they must always stay single. And they kind of lose this critical thinking of like, is that actually what I want? Do I want to just be single forever, or do I want something more? And do I want to be just running around the street, for years upon years and stuff? I mean, I've known many coaches who have been and gone from the industry, not with passing away, but with actually, they've had their fill of working within it, and they've gone, you know what, I want to move on. And if I stay in this pool or this industry, or I'm just staying around the people who just want me to be single, then I will never find a relationship. And I think there's very few coaches out there that kind of openly say like, I'm in a relationship, I'm happy, or we've been together for years. And in fact, like one of the things that I really admired for you, Ice, with you saying that, you're married, which is, I think, fantastic, that you had whatever the experience is, what you wanted from the dating industry. But at some point, or maybe it was a gradual thing, maybe it wasn't you just woke up one day and you were like, you know what? I want to be married now. But it was a decision that you'd made that you were like, you know what? I don't want to just be having short-term flings with people forever. I want to have like a best friend, or however woo-woo you want to kind of go with it. But you want someone who's a bit more than just an overnight thing. And yeah, and I think, again, like over the years, you just have guys who believe like, well, when they come into the industry, that is the must-have, that to be part of the industry, you've got to only want just to be single and sleep with women. And when you get coaches that essentially encourage that, and don't get me wrong, I mean, that's their lifestyle, that's what what they want to do. I mean, I've known coaches over the years that absolutely love the party life. They thrive on it. It's, part of their identity. But that's the thing, though. It's their identity. It's what they wanted out of life, as opposed to where you've got a guy who has a very normal 9 to 5 job, or he has his own thing, and he's looking for something that little bit more substantial. And why having like long-term and short-term dating strategies is, I think, a really important thing for guys. So at least then, if they're going to a dating coach who's teaching them how to meet women, how to have that dating life that you want, how to sleep around, is great and all. But I do think guys need to then consider how much of that terminology, or no, ideology is I think the word I'm looking for. How much of that do they want to adopt? Do they want that kind of like single dating life, completely, or do they just want to take what they need to from that dating coach who's going to give them that confidence that then they can go back to normal life, they can go back to their 9 to 5 jobs and whatnot, but then they can apply the skills that they've learned to actually meet people and have the dating life that they want. I've known guys who have learned how to do cold approaching, and then they've gone, after they've gone very, what's the word I'm looking for? After they've developed that confidence with speaking to people, they've then used that to, I suppose, I know, like for work reasons, they've then gone back to work and they want to try and get a promotion. So they've used that confidence to talk to their boss and say, right, well, I want to get a better job and stuff. But for other guys I've known, they've then just wanted to go into matchmaking, but now they've got the confidence to filter the women that they want, especially if it's like a religious thing. So I've got friends from all different cultures and backgrounds. So like Jewish, Muslim, Catholic, and so on. And some of them just want to meet people from those backgrounds. They don't really want to be walking around on the street and going like, well, it's going to be a bit of a lottery to, find someone who's got maybe the same beliefs and stuff as me. But they've understood that by going to a dating coach, learning those intricate things of how to have a conversation and flirt and how attraction works, that then they can apply it to meeting people through other methods. Whereas you'll have a dating coach that might then disagree with that and say like, no, just only meet women through the street. But that's also very easy for a coach to say that when, and I know a lot of coaches will be okay with me saying it because they're all kind of like friends and clients. But I mean, a lot of them kind of live like rich but homeless sex addicts who, they've got all the time in the world to go and talk to women. I mean, I've had clients over the years, 10 hours a day, they can go out. They'll have a date literally every night and do it. But for your normal average guy, they just haven't got that kind of time. Or if they're rich and they've got the time for it, then sure, fair play to them. But, the coaches live in a particular kind of, I don't know if bubble is probably a fair word to say, but they do live in a reality that's a very small percentage of guys that guys can experience, And for the other guys who come into it as clients, they should kind of treat their time in the industry as like a sabbatical experience, learn what you need to from the coaches, adopt the necessary ideologies and philosophies that a coach might teach, but ultimately, though, still hold on to your own beliefs and what you want out of the dating industry as well. And then however much time you then decide to spend in it, absorb yourself in it, learn everything that you want to, even if you've come into the dating industry because you literally want to be able to sleep with women and so on and, have a wild dating life, great. But then also at the back of your mind, have this idea in place that, what? The likelihood is out of these hundreds or thousands of women that I'm going to be meeting and speaking to and having dates with and stuff, I'm increasing the chances I'm going to meet someone who's going to be actually very special. And I'm going to regret letting them go if I just carry on meeting more women on the street. And I've known that also to happen with many coaches who they believed, and it made them very unhappy afterwards as well, but they believed that in the industry they had to stay single, that it was just
Mm.
part of the requirement of the job role, that if you're going to be a dating coach, then you have to be single and you have to just constantly keep meeting women. And they've lost some amazing partners because they just had to let them go for the pursuit of carrying on the career of showing other guys that they can carry on meeting women, even though I have also known coaches who have met women and have got into relationships with women who are absolutely okay with the coach demonstrating how to carry on meeting women, as long as they're not looking to pursue anything further than a demonstration for the guys. And for me, that's even then something to really be admired. And I've even encouraged coaches over the years as well to say, look, you've met someone amazing. Why would you want to let that go? Like, why?
They're
And
married to the game. They'll say they'll
yeah,
fuck, I can't speak. They'll say they're married to the game, which is ironic because that's not the purpose of the game. The purpose of the game for most people, and it varies, is that they want to use it in order to find someone who they may marry or just like have a relationship with, or just have better relationships. There's so many different um answers, and they're all personal depending on who you're asking. But some of them will say, I'm married to the game. And you're absolutely right. They'll just like, no relationships for me then. I'm married to the game. But that's the
yeah,
ironic thing. There's also Julien Blanc, who was one of the considered one of the greatest PUAs of all time. He's one of the guys who effectively turned his back on the game after he got married. And this is something I've been saying for the last 2 days, especially. Um, Me as a married man, it's not a contradiction to game or pickup artistry. It's not a contradiction that I'm in this, that I run Game Global. Me being married does not make me unqualified. If anything, it makes me more qualified because then I can teach you about relationships on top of everything else. And that is what a lot of pickup artistry is missing. Um, the actual dating advice on keeping a woman rather than just getting one, because there is that obsession with getting but not keeping. So I absolutely feel that.
yeah. And in fact, on top of that, I would say the thing that pickup artists kind of teach really is just the 5 minute sales pitch. Is how I've kind of dubbed it. That just that initial beginning interaction, how to master. I mean, because when you look at like all of the infields that I've done over the years with coaches, I mean, they're not like half an hour interactions. They're like 2-3 minutes where they've gone up to the girl, they've stopped them, they've wooed them a little bit. The girl's laughing. He's taken her number and stuff, and then that's it. Um, and even then, when it comes to the dates, I mean, I know coaches that use the same sort of like routines and structure like every single time. And, to be fair enough, because if you have your logistics down, if you've got your date locations, and hilariously, the waitresses know that you're bringing another girl in that you've met from the street, and, you're polite to them, so they know to kind of wing you a little bit on the date as well. And to have the particular conversations that's going to allow the date to get more seductive, then yeah, absolutely, that it works. But the coaches though, or the pickup guys, they do tend to teach just that 5 minute interaction. They don't really at the end of the day teach how to keep a woman, how to have that kind of relationship, even like on the honesty front as well. I mean, even I've sort of pushed over the years with coaches to just encourage guys to be more honest with women that they are dating. Like if they want multiple relationships, don't be secretive about it. It's that I think it's then unfair on the girls if they're like, I don't feel comfortable with sharing you with three other women. Then give them that opportunity to actually exit. And for the guys who have that ability to constantly keep meeting women, you're bound to find someone who's like, yeah, absolutely, I'm really cool with this situation. You can date whoever you want and sleep with whoever you want. But I do think, yeah, honesty is important. And yeah, and I think, yeah, just more of it needs to be there in relationships or in what's taught by coaches. But I think you can learn more from coaches who are in long-term relationships or who are married or who have kids. In fact, I'd even probably go as far to say the coaches who have kids, they're probably the ones to really learn a lot from, because if there's one thing I can say with what I've done looking after dating coaches over the years, it really is like looking after teenagers. Looking after kids who, or horny teenagers actually is probably the better way to phrase it. Looking after them and having to help them with their life struggles and stuff. Um, yeah, yeah. What can
Yeah,
I say otherwise?
I can add something to it as well. I mean, I've seen so many dating coaches and guys that be studying pickup that when they actually meet a woman that they find really attractive, that they they just feel like, oh, she's like an 8 or a 9 for me. They let go of everything else. I've seen it over and over again. It's almost like guys, they're learning pickup, they're going for women, they're not really feeling that they will be a long term. But there are always women walking around. There are long term women, or they can actually qualify them as long term women. They just don't have the courage to go to those top bracket of women. So they always go to those women that they know that if I sleep with her, I just want to move on after that. But once in a while, those students or pickup artists, they actually get that super nice woman, super hot woman that they feel connected to, and then they just let go of everything else. Haven't you seen that many times as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess there's the old school like one-nighters things, which I think is where then you get the coaches believe that, oh, if I give into having just a relationship with one person, um, then yeah, oh, I must be having like one-itis of it. Oh, I mustn't do that, so I have to carry on like dating other women. And I've known actually then coaches who've then like cheated on their partners because the temptation has just constantly been there, and then they haven't learned to develop that self-restraint. I think that's probably the right phrase for it. They just haven't learned how to know how to actually look after and maintain a relationship because they've just had so many short-term relationships.
Definitely. Alrighty, Ross Jeffries is here calling in from San Diego. We are talking about right now, if you want to answer this, because I have a feeling you got a great answer for this. What are some things in a general pickup artist mindset and community that are unhealthy for people's inner game?
First of all, where is the bowing, the scraping, the kowtowing to the guru of game, the prince of boon, the Ayatollah of moist pink cola, the originator of the entire community? How dare you just introduce me and your two guests not bow and scrape and beg?
I left the trumpets at home.
Now you may repeat your question, lowly worm.
Hey, I am the game emperor. I have reestablished our position in the universe. So anyway, here's the question. What are some things in the general pickup artist mindset and community that are unhealthy for people's inner game?
Yeah, I would say the big one is pushing through pain. Ignoring pain or pushing through pain. Now, taking action through your pain is better than sitting there and wallowing in it. But the problem is when you push through pain, you're distorting your perception because pain will distort your perception and cognition and warp your behavior. So that's the first thing. Second thing is you tend to draw people who are in equal levels of pain as yourself. Now, how that mechanism works, mirror neurons or whatever, I don't know, which will only heap more pain on you if you do succeed. And then I think on yeah, those are the things that I would say, rather than simultaneously address your inner wounding as you develop external skills. It's not one or the other. You can do them simultaneously instead of sequentially. That would be my answer to this.
Yeah, that reminds me of when you were debating mystery, he was kind of saying there's a lot of discipline to go to the club and everything, but you were saying you don't have to go to the club if you're in a particular terrible mindset kind of thing. So that's where it kind of I'm wording it poorly, but some kind of disagreement came up there. Because yeah, I resonate with that because if you're going to a nightclub every week and it really isn't your thing and you're just there sulking, looking depressed, then it's never, it's not something that you can push through exactly as you were saying.
I think there's a certain lifestyle that goes with it that's not sustainable if you have any depth to your character. If you really want to get good at mystery method, or any of those methods that are really heavily leaning into bars and clubs, then you have to take on that kind of culture. And my clients, at least, have better things to do with their lives than hang out in bars and clubs, even one night a week, what to say, 5 to really polish their skill and get multiple repetitions. But if you happen to fit that prototype or your stereotype or avatar, and that's what you want to do, okay, go ahead and do it. But I certainly wouldn't do it at my age. And most of my clients are in their 40s or even in their 50s, and they're not going to do it. If I walked out of a club at 66, I would likely get thrown out, and rightly so.
To backtrack a little bit, just before you joined, we were talking about inner game in general. As Patient Zero, as the originator of pickup artistry, Patient Zero,
Sounds like I'm an infection or a virus.
pretty much. Let's disinfect. What does the term inner game mean to you personally?
I would say it's an awareness and choice about your beliefs, about who you are, what you deserve, and most importantly, your willingness to let your actions in the world, your bold actions in the world, rather than your guessing or your internal dialogue, be the architects of your life. So many guys are stuck in their internal dialogue. Now, it's not to say internal dialogue doesn't have a useful function and purpose. It does, but it's not going to give you social skills. You can have the best refrigerator in the world, but it's not going to take you from point A to point B. It's not designed to do that. And so this, I'm going to use a big word, epistemological. Epistemology is the study and philosophy of how we claim to know things. How do we get information? Do we get it through revelation? Do we get it through intuition? Do we get it through going out and experimenting in the world? So taking on that mindset that you're going to let your experiments in the world that you do joyfully and that align with your vision and your values, and you do it boldly with detachment from the result. You become process oriented. These are huge shifts. No matter what activity of life you put through that process of doing things, you're going to tend to enjoy it and to learn quicker and to do better. And it's a courageous way to live. Otherwise, you're stuck. I really hate this expression, get out of your head, because we need our rational thought process to get things done. But I think where people make a big mistake is that epistemology, that picking the wrong one and even not even knowing that such a thing exists.
Interesting. Any other comments on what we discussed in the last few minutes?
Yeah, I have to, hat off to Ross Jeffries here. So what I spoke before about the inner game, there are a certain way of evolving when it comes to your cognitive function. Now we're talking about being able to increase your cognitive flexibility and your cognitive engagement. And if we are going to learn the wrong stuff in the beginning, we will actually inhibit our cognitive flexibility. However, if we are going to be more social and have our brain open for learning about other people, to listen carefully, listening skills is a really hard one. So many people underestimate the difficulty of actually listen. But once you start being curious as a mindset and listen as a behavior, now you are in a fundamental base of actually increasing your cognitive engagement and flexibility over time through experience-dependent plasticity. That is like a neuroscience, like when a complex mix of neurotransmitters are actually going to make you a smarter person. Your EQ is going to increase, or the conversational IQ, as we used to say in the communication faculty. So that is super important. Exactly what Ross Jeffries just mentioned. We have to learn to be social in the right direction in order to step by step getting better at our cognitive function, basically. And that is super important. If we go that route, everything can happen. If we go in the wrong route, we will be stupider instead. If we just going to go into the habituation area of learning a certain limited stuff over and over again, we're actually going to decrease our cognitive flexibility. And that is a big one, actually. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Alrighty, nice. Let's move on to the next one. How can we better identify and address toxic mindsets or practices in the pickup and dating coaching community?
Learn to meditate. The biggest shift and change I have seen in people is when they learn to create this compassionate witness, where they're able to look at their patterns rather than look through their patterns. It is a globalized, cross-contextual change in people. This is the biggest thing that you can learn to do. And later, I didn't do my meditation practice this morning. Things got in the way. I'll do it as soon as I'm done with some things this afternoon. But it's the single most important thing that I do.
Any other comments?
Okay, when you talk about, okay, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, can we like give Ross like a microphone to drop? Like I'm just like mesmerized by his voice as he was like saying that. Actually, it takes me back. This is going to go on a complete tangent just literally for a minute. But I remember learning from Ross back in 2009, and yeah, I know we're going back many years. And in fact, actually, I filmed for you a couple of times over the years, Ross. You probably won't remember me anyway.
Where were we located?
It would have been in London. So I filmed you once or twice for Haley. She's married now. She's got 2 kids. She's living in the south of France. And a couple of other occasions was with Matt Kendall for interesting talks when he had his events going on. So Matt says hello as well for you. So he'd hate me if I didn't pass on that message.
Give him my regards. I probably, 2009, I was probably still with my Swedish girlfriend then, like 19, she would have been 20 years old then, or 21. I don't know if you remember or not.
I mean, it was good 16 years ago anyway, but I mean, I remember learning, I mean, for me, your stuff resonated quite a lot back then. And even now, because of, I'm fascinated with just how people speak linguistically and even play around with their vocal tonalities. And I remember back then, the amount of times I went around telling people that I was going in a new direction was just, just absolutely phenomenal. So it was your message was always something that, resonated with me a lot. And I got to carry with me over the years whenever I was just naturally just meeting people or going on dates or having relationships, and always just bearing in mind that language of being really descriptive and using that with seduction or just being able to take people on a journey with their emotions. So
I appreciate that. Thank you. It's always good. And I don't know if you're still in contact with Haley or not, but give her my regards.
I spoke to her the other week, actually, because after with Johnny's passing, she called me up and to find out how I was.
You mean Johnny Castle?
Johnny Berba. So he had also taken his life. So he's the 4th friend of mine who committed suicide in the dating industry.
I never met him. He was a pickup artist?
Sort of. In fact, funny enough, he was a coach in the industry who actually hated pickup artistry. So he kind of taught more about just being yourself and just being very honest and genuine and authentic with people, and just teaching people just to freely express themselves.
Yeah, and who are the other 3 who off themselves?
So two of them you probably wouldn't know anyway. One was a friend of mine who I used to go out and do, who used to be a wing, and in our group when we'd go out and practice cold approaching, he was someone. There was a coach many years ago, a guy called Sam Powers. He took his life. But I'd say he was probably more of an acquaintance for me, but he was always so nice to me. But he was someone who certainly sent like a shock to the industry that this was someone who was a coach or was friends with coaches who had taken their lives, and everyone knew him. So it really did hit home. And then the third guy was Tom Torero. So he was a dating coach. And he was one of the nicest guys I also knew. Whenever he'd end up coming through London, we'd always end up saying hello and go for a drink. And he'd tell me about his travels around the world, him driving around in his van and stuff. Because he quite enjoyed this sort of like solo camper van kind of lifestyle. And then
Wow.
Johnny was the latest one about a month ago.
That's all tragic. My condolences to friends or family of those people. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. But because of so many dating coaches knew Johnny, he'd been in the industry for a good like 10 years. And yeah, and with his passing, so many coaches had reached out to me to kind of see how I was and stuff. And Haley was one of them. And yeah, and we had a good catch up and things. And I said, yeah, I'm gonna
Whatever happened to she's still at it. Kendra?
what Kezia Noble.
Kezia. What happened to
Yes,
Kezia?
yeah, she's now running her own business. She's got obviously a load of like clients, coaches, working underneath her and stuff as
Because
well.
she taught on my stage many years ago in London. She's Jewish. She converted to
Mhm.
Catholicism, I believe, because I
Did she
remember,
actually?
yes, I remember her sister came out and was visiting LA. And I took her to family Shabbat dinner because I like ice
Oh,
hides
well,
in my
I'm
garage.
Jewish as well, so the Jew sense is tingly. It always was, even after a decade of knowing you. So
Michael, you're so brilliant. I make you an honorary Jew. I have the power. I just call right now Jewish.
Hey, honorable. Thank you.
Your
Honorable.
penis just doubled in size, and your IQ, well, you're already a genius. So your IQ is the same, but your penis doubled in size.
I was gonna say his nose is gonna start growing when he's sleeping.
No, 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 no.
that's a myth. That's a myth.
Hey, have you seen mine? Come on.
You've kind of got that like Roman Greek mythology kind of
Oh, I
nose. Like
do.
if you
I've been
if
saying that, yeah.
if
Well,
you turned up
we're
dressed like a
right
Spartan.
now.
I got
I'm
like
gonna need some water.
a
Carry
bath.
on. I need some water. Keep
I got a
going.
bathrobe from Caesar's Palace. I fucking love Caesar's Palace. That's my favorite casino in Las Vegas. I got a bathrobe from there, and it's fucking awesome. And a few weeks ago on my second honeymoon, I was wearing it, and I found this random what do you fucking call it? The laurel leaf or whatever the fuck it is that the emperors would wear on their head
Oh,
with the
yeah,
golden
yeah.
leaves.
I think I know what you mean. Yeah.
And I found that in some random fucking fashion store, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna fucking buy that just for the sake of it. Just so I just took this fucking weird photo of just me posing as the fucking emperor of Gringoland or some shit. And that was around the time of the Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul fight. So it
Oh
comes with
yeah.
a hood. So I also did like a pose and I took a photo of that and posted it on Facebook saying, tagged Mike Tyson in. I said, Mike Tyson, I'll give you 90%, 95% of the revenue. Let's just make it look realistic this time. Let's just make it look convincing this time. God damn, that was the fucking fakest shit. But anyway, let's get back on track.
No, my apologies there. No, I had to at least say to you, Ross, because honestly, you were certainly for me one of the biggest influences with
Thank you.
my. I'm going to use the word direction again. My direction certainly with how I wanted to pursue
Thank you.
meeting women, or at least having conversations with
Thank
people.
you. That
Are you saying
that's very appreciated and very well received. And also, one of the more frequent messages I get is people are who are doing NLP and hypnosis for a living got their first introduction through me, which makes me happy.
Mm.
Are you
Yeah, I
saying you
wouldn't. I
get a
wouldn't be
very big,
surprised.
are you saying you get a very big new direction?
I
Yes.
think people misunderstand the use of phonetic ambiguity. By itself, it doesn't do anything, but in a conversation that's loaded with descriptive language, it gets women feeling a flow of feelings in their body and visualizing sexual imagery. Then if it use it, the unconscious mind will interpret it in the way you want it to. But just simply saying, I was walking the street and there was a stone below me, Debbie, it's not going to do shit.
Is it only because like when I talk to you about this for the sake of like teaching others, you emphasize it, but you
Yes.
actually don't emphasize it when you're actually doing it?
I don't emphasize it to the extent I mark it out by pausing and getting a little quieter in my volume. So if I wanted to give you a suggestion to listen carefully, I wouldn't say, Ice, it's important to listen carefully, or I wouldn't say, Ice, it's important to listen carefully. I would say, Ice, it's important to listen carefully. There's a slight pause. Subtle is significant. And the newbies or the people who don't understand my work really lean in on it, press down really hard on it, no pun intended.
Mm. Yeah. In fact, actually, that goes back a bit early with what we were speaking. With what we were speaking about with what I mentioned when guys are saying things that they've learned from coaches and they don't mean what they say, that they have no actual connection with the words. And in fact, with what Ross said there, there's all the connection and feeling with the words, and then that's what the women are feeling. And that again is really what I admired and took from his teachings over the years. And when you're getting guys today using like the day game blueprint and they're just saying the words, and then they're wondering why they're not getting results with women, it's because they just, again, they're not putting that feeling or emotion into the words that they're saying. And it just sort of falls apart. There's just nothing there for the women to connect on.
The difficulty of learning my system, and it's not easy, is you have to develop an emotional range. If you don't know how to take on the emotion of what you're saying, it will still
Mm.
work. The words will still work. But to get really at a champion level, you have to be able to feel the emotions that you're describing. And so that requires you to develop EQ and a vast range of emotional, good, not vast, but a greater emotional range than most men. And that's where most guys will stop and not go there.
Yeah.
All
Yeah, but
right.
also one thing that I have to again mention here is like it's not actually so much of what he's saying. It's more about how he asked the question for her to express herself. Because when she expresses herself, that is when we evoke the emotions that Ross Jeffries is talking about. He's doing it really, really quickly here. If we want to look at the area of interpersonal communication, there will be a little bit more in depth of the conversation when we're going to ask that kind of question. But it's still the way of asking the question to make her express fully what she thinks about that particular thing. And that is what evokes emotions. And I think people misunderstood. Many people would misunderstood the concept, I believe, because they think that is something I said. No, it's something I asked. And that is a huge difference.
No,
Would you
I think
agree?
it is what you say. I'm going to disagree. There's language patterns where you can definitely get women turned on by embedding suggestions and questions. I have one that I came up with that's my shortest because speech selection language patterns used to be quite lengthy. This is the one that requires the least memorization, takes about 7 to 8 minutes, and it's really good for female friends who you want to turn into bedmates. I call it the I saw a bad date pattern. I'm not going to give it away, but
Oh, I was getting my notepad and pen ready.
essentially what you do, and you can intuit a lot of it, if Daniel, because you're familiar with my work, is you invite a female friend to coffee and you ask her the question, you make small talk, and you say, "Hey, Debbie, are you a people watcher?" And of course, she's going to say, "Sure." You say, one of the things I love watching, I have is like watching a train wreck. I love watching people on a bad first date. And she'll roll her eyes and say, "Yeah, I know. I've been on enough of them," or something like that. And then I'll go on to describe how I was watching a couple who appeared to be on a bad date. You could tell she wasn't interested. And all of a sudden, he rubs the back of her neck and he leans over and he whispers something in her ear. And everything changes. She's on top of him, macking on him, grinding on him. She gets up to go to the bathroom. I walk over to the guy, shake his hand, and say, dude, first of all, you're my hero. But second, what did you whisper in her ear? And he says, I just leaned over and I whispered, and then I whispered into Debbie's ear. And what it is something that's very suggestive, and then suggestions tacked on to that to get her to imagine it for herself and to feel compelled to act on it. I'm 2 for 2 on this one. And it's not a lot of trials, but it's 100% hit rate. My students are using it. I'm not going to say what the phrase is because then I'm giving away the secret sauce. But you know
Well,
what, Daniel?
I did have the pen and paper literally ready. Like, what's the
You know
word?
what, Daniel and Ice and Michael, I'll tell you off the air if you ever want individually or as a group.
But out of curiosity, is because when I said, like, when you asked the question and she expressed something.
Well,
If
yeah,
if you're going to take that and say something, as you mentioned, something they're going to evoke her emotions, then it is a reflective listening skill movement, so to
that's
speak.
true. But the only thing I'm
So,
evoking, that's true to an extent. The
yeah,
only thing I'm evoking from her is some curiosity to
yeah.
actually get her horny and turned on and picturing fucking and feeling her pussy getting wet. It's what I whisper in her ear, the words I say, not a question I ask her. So I'm going to diverge from what you're saying. It's my
No, no,
kitty.
but really, that is what, because what I meant in the beginning was that when you asking her to imagine things, then you're waiting for her expression. How is she going to express herself? You take that, and then you're going to nice cat. Then you're going to do whatever you want to say. But that is a reflective listening move, so to speak. Whether it's very sexual, whether it's for her to actually visualize what you said there, that is based on her expression. People reflect back in different ways. Some people might paraphrase in a certain way. Some people will make a summary and then give some kind of a so-called indirect sexual spark to make her really think about sexual things. But it comes from you asking a question. She gives some kind of you almost like you open a door for her conscious mind.
That's
suddenly.
true. That's
And
true.
then when the door is open, now you start using pretty standard interpersonal communication tools to reflect back, and then on the top, poof, you're saying what you just said.
That's
whatever
true.
that secret is. That is what is going on here. And if you would say that line to make her, let's say she become horny, you will use that line. If you want to use another line to make her feel really good with you in a different way, you use that other line. But it goes that order. You ask a question, you want to lock up her mind, because your way of questioning is taking things to depth. When you take things to depth, when she actually starts thinking about things, bam, you open the door. Now you're inside the door. Now you start influencing, whether you're going to use the secret of yours or something else. Are you agree with me here?
Kind of, sort of, kind of not, but we're going to go back and forth. And
Okay.
Daniel is writing something. Daniel, what are you writing?
If anything, just trying to think of an answer for the actual question that I said
Yeah.
asked before. I feel a bit naughty, sort of like pulling the tangent away there, so I do apologise with that. If anything, just for clarity, when you mention about with addressing toxic mindsets and practices, have you got an example maybe for me, just so I can make sure I can give a
Yeah.
right answer for it?
I got at least one in mind. So the obvious one that comes to mind is there's an obsession, and you kind of touched upon it earlier. Um, Here's the classic question. What's your leg count, bro? What's your body count?
Yeah.
I don't like those terms because like when you say body count, it's like, am I a serial killer? What the fuck is going on here?
Yeah,
And then
and no one really cares either.
it's
It's
just
a
weird.
validation thing. Yeah.
Like, to be honest, I was at a party this week and there was one particular guy there and he's sending messages through his phone. And some of the things, like the way he would say things, it just wouldn't resonate with me. Maybe it's just how I respond to those kinds of things. But some of the questions I get, and like lots of coaches get this kind of thing. It's like, what's your leg count, bro? And that kind of thing. Well, first of all, I stopped counting years ago. And even if I was fucking counting, that's kind of like, well, not only beside the point, but why would I be keeping count like it actually matters anyway? Like, does it matter as a qualification for being a dating coach? To some extent, you know, if you're a virgin and you're trying to be a sex coach, yeah, that's not going to work. But I had plenty of relationships. I'm a married man. Obviously, I'm not a fucking virgin. And I have genuinely had sex with a lot of women, but then there's the mindset on top of that. Like, where's your infield? Where are your receipts? First of all, I don't have sex with prostitutes, and I didn't know they gave receipts. That's kind of strange. Isn't that illegal? Wouldn't that be like evidence in the courtroom? This prostitute kept receipts. Oh, he spent $120 on a blowjob.
Well, you
What
claim
the
it
fuck
as a
are
work
these
expense
words?
then.
This is just fucking stupid. Like receipts, that's another term that makes no sense. Like if you, every time I have sex, I don't take a fucking video. Like where is this fucking mindset coming from? Like if you were truly concerned about someone's evidence that they were having sex with every single woman they had sex with, they will be on Pornhub, basically. Anything
Mm.
short of the penis entering the vagina is not real evidence that these guys are kind of hinting at. It's just this ridiculous. I'm just ranting, but it's this ridiculous
Yeah,
thing
no, okay, no,
that
I
has
can
just
see.
become
Yeah, I know what you mean now.
frustrating.
Yeah, I think with because in fact, I've probably got a story actually to go with this, but I think the thing that people need to do is actually just challenge the coaches who have these kind of weird mindsets and philosophies. And I can give you a story about a coach that I'd essentially talked out of being a dating coach. So he wasn't someone who was in the industry for very long. In fact, I think he'd even done someone's residential experience, and like with many of the coaches over the years and generations who they go off, they do a residential or a boot camp, and suddenly they now count themselves as experts. And they're like, oh, you know what? I can be a coach now. I can do it. I've got laid over the weekend and stuff. And, you know, and now they feel they can do that. I remember there was a coach that I'd worked with, and we're going back a few years. And like I say, he didn't last very long. I remember we were out filming in London, and he'd said to me about his lay count, and it was like in the three digits, or it was in like the hundreds, the first hundreds, whatever. And I said to him, just in passing, like, well, what's next for you? And he was like, well, the next goal is 200. And I was like, okay, and then what after that? And he's like, well, I'm going to go for 300, obviously. I said, okay, well, what's going to, where do you see yourself when you hit 600? He's like, well, I'm going to carry on pursuing women. Okay, what about 1,000? Well, I'm going to keep going. What about 2,000? Same answers. And it went until we got to like the 10,000 number. And then the answer, it just sort of sunk into him. He was like, yeah, it's a pretty empty goal, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, yeah. What is that that's, if you believe that just sleeping with 10,000 women is your purpose in life, and then you have no idea what you're going to do after you've slept with 10,000 women, what's the point of it? You know, what memories are you going to have? And then I even asked him, like, well, out of the 100 or whatever women you've slept with, what do you remember? And he remembered like maybe one or two, because he then actually really liked the girls and then he dated them. So everyone else was essentially a blur. They were just literally not even a memory. They were like a figment of his imagination. And he then realized that maybe being a dating coach wasn't the ideal thing, because he really didn't care about teaching people. All he cared about was sleeping with women, and that it would just be a lot of effort to coach to try and achieve that. So I would say like guys need to be really challenging coaches on their weird ideologies, and certainly not stand for it. I know I haven't stood for it over the years when I've had coaches who have either said really weird things or done really weird things. I'd like to think that I sort of stand by my own values that I've been brought up to believe, which certainly isn't to agree with some of this and call them out. And I'm quite happy to lose clients if I think that they're doing something that's either derogatory or evil in a sense. Then to encourage them or help them to get clients or vulnerable guys who don't know any better, and then they don't get the results that they wanted. And even with what we spoke about before with like long-term and short-term dating, if you've got guys that want to have girlfriends or relationships and then they're essentially paying guys who are essentially just manipulating them, really, they're not going to help them out at all. Then really guys need to challenge them, call them out on stuff. And I know I've kind of given quite a broad answer. I haven't been too specific with that because I certainly want to avoid it coming back to any particular coaches that I've worked with. But yeah, I think really like guys need to be, they need to certainly critical think a bit more, and then challenge any toxic mindset. Like, well, why does a lay count matter? Does it really matter? Like, I've known coaches, some who have slept with hundreds of women, and I've known some that certainly haven't hit triple digits yet. Does that make them any different? No, because the ones who have actually slept with less women, they've had better relationships with women. And in fact, in a way, they've probably had more sex than the guys who are just trying to put all the effort into having the odd sex here and there from a complete stranger, which you don't really know the quality of. So yeah, so I think go back to it. Yeah, just I think challenging guys need to be more confident or have a bit more conviction with challenging anything that they question. Like, do they really need to adopt that ideology to get good at being with women, whatever that can look like for them?
When it becomes a penis measuring contest, it just becomes fucking ridiculous and so unnecessary. There's a quote, I don't know how true this is, but there's a quote associated with Bob Marley. Money is numbers and numbers never end. If it takes money to be happy, your search for happiness will never end. And that is the same fucking concept, because infinity is the end result, but that's gonna be fucking impossible. And that when that guy says 10,000, the average lifespan is about 28,000 days. So that's one in every less than 3 days since the day where you were born. So you know how realistic does this become?
Yeah.
So where the fuck is the end result? It just leads back to that fucking end result.
I think the only body count that matters to me are the number of men whose lives I've changed. I mean that sincerely. And that's literally in the tens of thousands. There are children in the world because of my work. So those are the only body counts that matter to me. And the other thing is I get over the years, where's the infield footage of you? And there's a little bit if you watch the Louis Theroux show. But basically, my answer is I don't like hiring actresses and models, even if they had infield footage of me succeeding with someone who's 25, 30 years younger. You could easily claim that's an actress or a model. The reason I give out so much free stuff on my site is so you can go out. You cannot argue with your own results. The best testimonial for me are your results that you get before you even pay me a penny. That's my philosophy. That's how I've always done business. And anyone who thinks that sleeping with 1,000 women or 10,000 women, that essentially means you're living to ejaculate, which I think in terms of getting values that are going to make you a more fulfilled human being probably is not a good way to go. If you want to do it, good luck.
Once you become older or become a parent, you get to more in the mindset of what your legacy actually is. So that's kind of what you were talking about. I have my own children, and some of your students have their own children. I have a child. She is my legacy. So that is, it's not like a woman I had sex with 10 years ago or whatever still feels the vibrations of my penis 10 years later. That's not how it works. That's not a legacy. A legacy is something like family, and the family lives on, has their own family. That's how I will be remembered. Uh, maybe I could think that someday one of the women I had sex with before she could reach the age of 80 and she's thinking about me from when she was like 25 or something. Oh, that time I had sex with this one guy, and I'm probably not the only fucking guy she ever had sex with.
I,
Yeah, and then what? That thought dies with her. Where is the legacy?
I
Where's the
wasn't
real
aware
fucking
that you
legacy?
had a child. Bless your heart. Are you raising her Jewish?
Uh, my nope, my no
Ashanda,
circumcisions there.
Ashanda, a shame you are to our people.
And
I
you've got
am
Fanica coming up as well. I mean, what a great time to get her started.
I am genetically or through ancestry. My ancestors are Jews. My wife is Catholic. I'm atheist, and my immediate
Well,
family is atheist too.
I'm an atheist too. I just wear this to piss off the anti-Semites. I only started wearing this when they had the October 7th attacks. I'm serious.
Real, yeah, but yeah, my daughter's actually being raised kind of like atheist Catholic, which technically makes no sense. But I'm like, just let her decide whatever. But Catholics and Muslims are always like, let's recruit, that kind
I'll
of
never
thing. They have
forget the
these
show.
structures.
I'll never forget the show you did, and people were saying the Muslim guy, the Muslim guy. They thought you were a Muslim.
Just because I got a beard, fucking beardist people. This is sexism, beardism. Anyway, any other things to kind of touch upon this, like the toxic
Another
mindsets?
another toxic mindset I think have to be brought up is the belief of passive value. There are so many coaches out there that promote that you have to be really handsome, really rich, and really successful in order to get women. And if you haven't achieved any of that yet, do it first. Be like a Superman first. And once you are a Superman, now you can start meeting women. It's almost like you're getting the certificate of being good enough to meet women. But I can tell you directly to everyone who's listening is that women are not getting so triggered of what they see. They're getting triggered of what they feel when they are with someone. And if a guy is pretty decent, average man, and she feels good being with him, that's all it takes. And many coaches out there don't promote this. They promote that you have to be this really Superman that are very popular amongst women that are having a good status in the society at work, and of course a lot of money. Now you're qualified. That is just nonsense. So I just want to put it out there that this is not the case, period.
On the other hand,
Whenever
you do have to take care of yourself. You don't want to subcommunicate, as RSD would say. You don't want to subcommunicate that you don't care about your appearance. If you keep a house, hold on, there's sounding an alarm here for a moment. It's a fire alarm. I'm going to mute myself. Ah, it's done. Um, on the other hand, if you don't take care of your environment, if your house is dirty, if you don't take care of your body and your health, you're communicating that you just don't care about yourself. So why would someone care about you? So I need to follow that message and take another hour cleaning up my place today because it is a disorderly mess. But I think it's really important, even small details. Your unconscious mind picks up on that and it will convey to other people the way you feel about yourself.
what I
Yeah,
say
I
is
used to
that
emphasize. I
that
used to
mess
emphasize on
is
the
stress.
hygiene.
I
Yeah,
I say that mess is stress, and like if you got a fucking messy house, you're gonna have a very messy fucking mind. That's the kind of
Mm.
alignment. The last thing I will say before I leave the rest to you guys on this question. Comparison is also kind of similar to like how many women have you had sex with kind of thing. Like who the fuck talks about that anyway? It's not a
I know who
normal
does. He's an
conversation.
idiot.
Yeah,
He's an idiot and he won't, he's too big of a pussy to debate you.
exactly. That guy got the best inner game in the world, guys. Keep that in mind. Anyway,
Is that who I think it is out in America somewhere?
oh, you cut out
Um,
there. What'd you say?
is that who I think it is? A particular coach
95%, probably
who
95%
who
accuracy.
has
You are
apparently
correct.
been with over a thousand. Like,
Yes,
okay, cool.
basically.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry. That guy has the best inner game in the world. Clearly, clearly.
Yeah,
Anyway,
he's like Voldemort, he who shall not be named.
well, I didn't give a shit because he always did these. I was actually on his channel more than 4 years ago. Like everyone he kind of collaborated with, almost everyone he kind of like attacked them after. So he started talking shit about me in like a live stream or a bunch of live streams and whatever. So I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna make a video and because fuck you. You're just spilling lies, and it's so ironic that it's just that this guy just claims a bunch of shit that isn't true and
Mm,
says things about you that aren't true and then criticizes you for telling the truth about him. It's just like, oh, come on. It's just
yeah,
fucking
I
retarded.
get the impression he's someone who does look for a lot of validation from people. Like I haven't really watched any of
Hmm.
his stuff, but I did see the a bit of the live
That's the
stream that he did
thing.
about Johnny, and I actually found it quite distasteful within like the first minute.
How exactly?
He was just literally just shitting on him. Like literally, you can watch it in like the first minute. He just says how Johnny was some washed up dating coach who failed at everything, and I thought you're literally spitting on a guy's grave here, and and for me, it actually it sort of turned my stomach a little bit, and then when I skimmed through what was I think a 3 hour stream. And then I had a couple of other coaches who did watch it, and then they relayed it back to me, and they just said like it then just turned into him talking about his business and promoting how he can change people's businesses and lives. And then he went on to say, well, he went on to say how Johnny shouldn't have been coaching because with him having his OCD and his depression and his suicidal thoughts, but
That
then
doesn't take
later,
away from the fact that people have suicidal thoughts and people have
yeah,
OCD. So therefore,
yeah,
he is
my thoughts,
qualified to fucking coach.
yeah, and then not, and then almost in like the same sentence later on, he then says how he's on antidepressants or he's on some kind of medication himself. And when one of my clients told me about that, I was like, well, that's a bit hypocritical. You can't say other coaches shouldn't be coaching because they're on medication, but yet you can be on medication yourself and essentially say that, yeah, it's fine for me to coach, but everyone else shouldn't. Um, yeah, I haven't really seen much of his stuff. I've heard stuff about him, but sometimes I think plausible deniability is a blessing in disguise, or what's the phrase? Ignorance is bliss. I think sometimes just not knowing about certain things is probably better than knowing about with him.
Similarly, I did see that video pop up, but I was like, this can't be good anyway. So yeah, you have confirmed my suspicions,
Yeah.
essentially. But yeah, that was kind of like another thing I wanted to mention. Like comparison is the killer of fun. There's some kind of phrase out there, kind of like that. Um, if I'm not the tallest man in the world. Does that mean I'm a loser because there's only one winner? There's only one person at the very top who's literally at the very top, taller than anyone else. There's only one winner and 8 billion losers. I'm not the
Yeah.
tallest man in the world, but the tallest man in the world is number one.
Yeah.
This kind of game of comparison is just completely fucking dumb because people are their own people, but you first of all, you can't be number one forever from
Yeah.
the day you were born to when you die. Uh, then there's like,
Out of
why would you be
curiosity,
comparing yourself to others? You should
yeah.
play the game of your own uniqueness.
out of curiosity, do you remember when there used to be the pickup awards? When every year there was like
Oh,
a
I'm
convention for
continuing
pickup
that,
artists.
but yes, go on. I am hypocritically continuing that, but yes, continue.
Well, I just sort of remember that when there was that every year, and then there was a reason for guys to be quite egotistical about trying to show off because there was like an opportunity to get an award for being the best. And in fact, something else that Michael mentioned as well with like the looks thing. Uh, is that what the black pill is? I don't.
Yeah,
To be
yeah.
honest, I don't really understand with the red, blue, and black.
I can
But
quickly summarize, but basically, Red Pill kind of goes back to Rollo Tomasi. If you're familiar with the movie The Matrix, which has probably nothing to do with Rollo Tomasi, that's just where he got the idea from.
sure,
In the movie The Matrix, you just said a minute ago, ignorance is bliss. That's blue pill. Blue pill is effectively ignorance, and red pill is here's a bunch of knowledge. Do with it any kind of good that you can. And then black pill is just like a bunch of, this is my version of explaining a bunch of losers who are like, I reject everything else. Oh, and girls are just attracted to
okay. So
beautiful
they've got more
looking
of like a
men.
victim mentality. They believe
Exactly.
that oh, there's nothing they can do. They're helpless. They can't change
It's
their
pretty
stars
much
and
like
stuff.
kind of close to or pretty much is incel kind of stuff. And that
Sure.
we get a load of people coming onto Game Global, especially in the past, in the communities, and they would have like, you don't need game, you just need to be good looking. Okay, thanks for your dating advice. Let me just turn myself into a good looking person, even if
Yeah.
I'm deformed. How does that work? It's like maybe there are things you can do to improve that, but it's like for you to dictate and say this is scientifically the only thing you need, and then to also have this victim mindset attached to it. And the ironic thing being the person who runs Game Global, the biggest community for seduction on earth, I get to see this over and over again. The most ironic thing, 98% of the time, the people who are pushing this ideology always have an anonymous profile. If you're
Mm.
so in the belief that beauty as a man is everything, then why are you not showing photos of yourself? Like where's the actual, where are your testimonials? So that's
Yeah.
just rant over, but essentially that's the kind of thing.
Well, some of us are
Okay.
born lucky and have perfect features, Herculean bodies, and a colossal package.
Yeah,
It's a Jewish thing. It's a Jewish thing.
exactly. Like I was at a party this weekend. I was saying to someone like I could just go in fucking scruffy as I am. My shoes are dirty as hell. I wear the same clothes, not the same shirt every day, but I wear white shirts every single day. I wear blue jeans every single day. I just look like I'm wearing the same fucking shit. I don't comb my beard most of the time. I look like I'm half homeless, but I'm still out there doing all these things. And yeah, I had some good observations, but there you go. It's just I'm not out here proving them wrong. I'm just doing whatever. But anyway, yeah. I guess we should move on to the next one. How has your understanding of inner game evolved over the years, and what experiences influenced that evolution?
I think when I first came to Jesus and accepted his precious blood and it washed away my sins, that's what did it for me.
It's actually a really good question. How would you understand? It really is.
For me, the biggest part is learning meditation. Vipassana meditation has changed my entire perception of what it is to be human and how to walk through the world in a way that's reasonably compassionate and not take my shit out on other people. That's the biggest thing for me. NLP and hypnosis were the first, but then learning to do insight meditation, Vipassana meditation is what did it for me. Ice just went somewhere.
It's
I don't
gone
know
to the
where he.
toilet.
I think it's our show now. Welcome to the God Emperor Dune Ross Jeffries show. We have with us Daniel and Michael. They are about to light incense on their altar for me and kowtow to my image. And I would rather get a bank wire transfer. So I will give you my account. I'm going to
Yeah,
type it
send me
in.
a PayPal and I'll send you a fiver.
Okay, send me a quid, 5 quid. When did Haley get married?
I think it was it was either just after the lockdowns or just before it.
How did she meet this guy? Because I remember she had just, when I saw her in 2010 or something, she had just had a real psychopath run her through the ringer.
Yeah, she certainly had some interesting boyfriends over the years. And I know because I was there during most of them that she'd dated. But she'd met her husband through the gym. So they were both going to the same gym together, doing the same classes, and the gym was pretty much like round the corner from where she was living, and
Do you know who's
they met
really
that way.
good? Who's a really good female coach? Her name is Lily Walford. Have you heard of Lily?
That the name rings a bell,
Lily
but I'd
teaches
have to see a
behavioral
face of her.
Lily teaches behavioral profiling that she learned from my friend Chase Hughes. So you can behavioral profile the person who you're dating. Very interesting shit and do deception detection and interrogation techniques without seeming like an interrogation. It's really unusual and interesting stuff.
Well, Joe, I used to be really naughty. Certainly in my sort of earlier years with doing the pickup stuff or being really into it. I used to be quite into creating anchors. So after I'd slept with a girl, I'd kind of created an anchor that if I touched them on the back of the arm, that they would have an orgasm. So if we were going out and having like a date during the day, or if we just went out shopping and stuff, I'd just sort of touch them on the arm, and then they just sort of like have this like like flustery sort of.
Wait. You mean females orgasm and it's important?
Who would have thought, or who would have
Who would have
suspected it,
cared?
right? But that's going back of quite a few years, if anything. But yeah, that's how Haley met her husband.
Well, that's great. Good for her. Give her my regards. I have 10 more minutes because I need to meditate and clean up my house. I haven't meditated yet today, and I really need my practice.
Actually, I have a question about with your meditation because you
Yes.
said as well that you do or you've done your Vipassana stuff
Yeah,
as well. Um,
that is meditation.
is that what you're also going to do
Yeah.
in 10 minutes time? Okay, so that's your go
That's
to.
my style. I don't do mantra japa, which is repeating a mantra. Vipassana is a whole nother topic to get into. I suggest you check out the work of my teacher, Shinzen, Shinzen.
That name does sound familiar, actually.
Shinzen Young, Young.
Okay.
He is the God Emperor of meditation.
Yeah. What drew you to doing Vipassana?
I had an interview of Ross. I love it. Ice, you can step in
That's
anytime.
my bucket list completed now.
What did you? That's a long story. I had a friend who was having a lot of back pain, and I don't know how I got introduced to it, but I was taking classes with Shinzen's senior student, Stephanie, at the time. And I said, does Shinzen have anything for physical pain? And she said, yeah, he's got this book. And I don't know if she gave me or I bought it. I don't remember. It's called Breakthrough Pain. And it was so brilliant. It was like when my mind blossomed open when I read my first NLP book that really hit home for me, Frogs and the Princes, the other one, Transformations. It was so brilliant that I thought, wow, I need to study this work. And so that's how I got involved with it. I went to one of his retreats and that's how I got into it. It helped me get through the death of my mother in 2006, the death of my father, the end of a 16-year business relationship. And when I stick to it, I do it in the mornings. Again, today I did not, nor did I yesterday. It makes me, it gives me very, very, very small micro hits of happiness beyond human understanding and happiness independent of my conditions and circumstances, which is a huge thing. I no longer, I definitely have goals to reach more people and have more money and all the rest of it. And my major outcome in life is to have a great relationship with suffering, because life is filled with it. We're going to lose people. People we love will get very ill, will get very ill. And so NLP and the rest of it provided me solutions to the small sufferings of life, but the big S's of life, constant change, losing people, losing our faculties, it never provided answers for that. And Vipassana doesn't really answer it in the sense that we get to avoid it, but it does teach us how to go through it in a way that's more skillful. And it's just a great thing for me.
Well, I
Wow.
still got you, Ross. For all you guys, can you share a moment when your inner game was truly tested and how you navigated it
You mean in life or just with women?
in life?
Again, my mother died of liver cancer. She was demented before she went. My father died. I was very close to both of them. I still consider them to be my best friends, or two of my best friends. Ending that, God, that business divorce was horrible. And just general, I have, I don't like to say I have bipolar disorder. I manage the bipolar experience, and the meditation is about 1/4 of how I manage my moods. I have to do things every day to stay on top of my moods that other people who don't manage the disorder don't have to do. I'm not saying everyone doesn't have their shit. Everyone has their shit, but I have an extra layer that I deal with. And the women I date, when I tell them, like 6 weeks in, they said, "You're joking, right? I don't see it. There's no way I would know. Your moods are completely, I mean, sometimes you're a little bit out there more than usual." I have it very well managed because, and one of the big pieces is doing the meditation practice. Otherwise, I'd be fucked.
What about you, over guys?
Um, well, I think for me, in fact, I find that quite admirable because I've worked with other coaches as well who I think I've really just kind of discovered that everyone has problems of sorts going on in their lives. And I think for me, it's fascinating actually just how well you found a structure that works for you. And in fact, I know it's sort of not answering your question, but I'd actually be quite curious to know um, if there was an order with things for guys to actually work on their inner game with the I suppose with the knowledge that you picked up and the skills that you picked up, what kind of chronological order would you suggest to guys? Would you be saying like,
Meditate, do the right kind of therapy. I've been through years of therapy. The only kind that ever helped me was dialectical behavior therapy.
oh,
Hypnotherapy is
interesting.
great. It didn't particularly work for my issues, but I think one of the things that's missing in men and women is emotional regulation. Uh,
Mm,
a lot women more so than men. I think that's what we call crazy. It is crazy, but it's also emotional regulation issues. So to emotionally regulate, I learned, I went through 2 years of dialectical behavior therapy. There's another kind of therapy called ACT therapy, acceptance commitment therapy, that's really, really good. So I went through a couple of years of therapy, a daily practice of meditation, uh, hypnosis and creative visualization, gratitude practice, taking care of my exercise, my sleep, what I eat, making sure I socialize properly. There's a lot of elements that go into this. And if I leave
mm,
out any one of them for more than 2 days, I start to, and medication. I take meds. I make no bones of it. I've talked about it publicly, and people say, if you know all this stuff, why do you need meds? Well, bipolar has been shown to be a chemical shift in the brain. All I can tell you is without the proper medication, I came within 3 weeks of killing myself. I would have killed myself for sure had I not. I actually committed myself for a 72-hour hold. And they didn't help me at all. They just drugged me up to make sure I didn't off myself. But
Mm.
subsequent to that, I got the right medication. I found a psychiatrist who I wasn't sleeping. I went for 2 years without sleeping normally. I had a torrid affair with a Danish girl who fucked me senseless. And she agitated me so much because there was so much anger in her sex. And that it kept me from sleeping. It triggered a 2 year manic episode. Uh,
Wow.
so I don't know why I'm going into all this. It's
No, but I honestly, I think that's really commendable. I mean, with what we were saying before about really what guys need to be hearing is that it's absolutely okay to be getting this kind of support and help, whether it be with having medication, if it helps you to socialize and be comfortable in your own skin, then so be it. You know, each to their own. I think that's incredibly commendable
well, we
that
have
you are
fat
speaking about
shaming.
that.
We have fat shaming, and now, but the big shaming is shaming. We shame
Hmm.
people's psyche if it's not together. I just came up with that. I haven't even had my afternoon coffee, and I came up with that. So I give myself a pat on the back. On that note, I really do need to go meditate do my 30 minutes. And thanks for inviting me, Ice. Michael was on my show. Good to have you on the show. Give my regards to Haley and
Well,
Ice. Happy Hanukkah, my man.
Thanks. Glad to have you here. It's
Always a pleasure.
some beautiful stuff. Alrighty. What was I thinking of? It's a shame that I didn't get to say this while Ross was still here. But I previously interviewed a doctor of psychology at McGill University. He was invited onto this show. Maybe he was going to come in the second half. Not sure if he's running late or if he's no longer able to make it. He was kind of 50-50. University professors are pretty busy, But he kind of opened my eyes on how men specifically can have a more effective psychotherapy, because this is what he specializes in, mental health, and yeah, basically just mental health. And what he described was that for men, it is way more valuable and effective to have psychotherapy shoulder to shoulder, in the sense that if you go fishing with other men, or if you're doing a woodwork workshop kind of thing, where there's an end result, but you're building something side by side or spending some time side by side, whether that's walking, fishing, several other examples out there. That appears to be the most beneficial psychotherapy for men. And there's some evolutionary biology reasons behind that, such as hunting. We don't hunt anymore, or most of us don't. But that was a side-by-side thing. Not to say that depression never existed 10,000 years ago, but that kind of opened my eyes a lot, because that made a lot of sense. I'm no expert on mental health myself. I have a one of my close friends and someone I really looked up to, uh, committed suicide nearly 10 years ago now. Um, and he had depression. But I always get a bunch of questions from the people who kind of like know him and then find me through the charity I run with his mother, or mutual connections and whatever. They kind of ask me what my mental state is like if I ever experience depression. Or a lot of it is because they themselves experience depression, and because I'm co-running the depression-based charity, I might know some answers, but my perspective is oddly different. I have never dealt with depression, but what I have had is kind of the opposite. And this is kind of confirmed by the doctor I interviewed. I always had a very strong sense of purpose, and that is what was able to get me through pretty much everything. So I always turned to purpose. And thus, maybe that's why I never fell victim to depression or any of these other things. Maybe there are biological factors. I don't know. However, one thing did happen 2 years ago to this month. My wife was diagnosed with brain cancer and a very dangerous type, grade 3 anaplastic astrocytoma brain cancer, which kills 73% of people in the first 2 years. It has now been 2 years, so this month it kind of hits. I'm not really, I would like to say I'm not really emotionally affected by it, but um, it's on my mind this month because I know that it's 2 years now. But at
Yeah,
the
it's that
same time, there's
anniversary of it.
the
Yeah.
yeah, there's the gratitude that well, she's still here for the time being. And after 5 years, 80% of people fall victim to it, leaving only 20% of survivors. I looked at all kinds of studies, and I don't think anyone lives beyond 10 years. I would love to find any information on that if there is. I couldn't find anything. But yeah, essentially that's what I've been kind of going through, or my wife has been going through that. But we're a family. We have a daughter together. She's my wife, so of course it's something very personal to me too.
Mm.
However, my reaction to it, um, was because first wasn't the diagnosis, it was actual brain surgery. She was hospitalized. She had a stroke. Her arm stopped working. She couldn't smile on one side of the face.
Oh.
And
If
she,
you don't mind me
like,
asking, how old is she?
now 35. Yeah,
Right, okay.
35. Yeah. And yeah, it's quite rare to get it this young too. It's like almost middle aged, but
Yeah.
it's very rare to get this the younger you go. I know there was someone who was, I think, the COO of uh, one branch of Google, friend of mine, and his daughter had brain cancer when she was 4 or 5 years old or something ridiculously young, and she survived. So that was kind of like inspiring for me to hear after a good few months without knowing that. But essentially, she had a stroke. Then she got rushed into brain surgery after 1 week, super fucking quick. It was kind of scary that after during brain surgery, it'll be 8 or 12 hours long awake brain surgery. And as I keep saying, that's something that really kind of irks me because I always recognize that my greatest asset is literally my brain. So like that, I couldn't bear the greatest thing taken away from me. Like if my brain was taken away from me, I'll be dead. But um, as a very high IQ person, I always valued my brain, my intelligence, that kind of thing. So it's like a little bit of irony in there. My reaction to it was not a bad reaction. Instead of sitting at home doing nothing, worrying about it or whatever, because I can't be in there during brain surgery, that'll be distracting to all the doctors, the surgeons, whatever. But I went on doing a YouTube video with Michael Sartain and Rollo Tomasi. I interviewed Rollo Tomasi for the first time, who's the father of Red Pill, basically. And while I'm not really too familiar with Red Pill even to this day, I used that as an opportunity to catapult myself into taking more action on YouTube. And a few weeks back, I celebrated 10,000 subscribers. When my wife had brain surgery that day, I had something like 2,500 subscribers or something. So I have multiplied the following by four and that's just YouTube alone. And there are various other achievements that I had since then. And my mindset was I should go all in now because this is the best opportunity to do it. I can't just sit here and do nothing. It's everything or nothing, and I better do something now. That's just like the plainest way to put it. But essentially there's that. So yeah, that's what my wife is suffering from. It is a terminal illness. It comes with a lot of uncertainty. So that can be quite concerning. But at the same time, I have to recognize as a father and as a husband, I have to do whatever is best for the family. And that is not caving in. Well, that's not in my personality anyway, but and not to sound disrespectful or anything, but it's my job to push forward whatever challenges we can face. Whether I'm surrounded by fire, I get a problem-solving personality, so I'll just deal with it, whatever the problem is. And if the problem is that my wife has a terminal illness, then that makes things difficult for all of us. So therefore, I should work harder, try to increase my income so that my wife doesn't have to work. These kinds of logical responses. But that's enough for me. I would love to hear
Well,
perspective of you guys.
I mean, I'll definitely jump in there. I mean, so because there's a few things that you said. First of all, I think it's absolutely commendable just with how you're looking after your wife and your kid as well. And you'd sort of beaten me to saying that in a way, as the role as the dad or as the father, being able to be essentially your daughter's rock and your wife's rock as well, to just try and keep that stability there even throughout all of the chaos. I think is absolutely amazing. And and I hope that at least people are patting you on the back or giving you whatever sort of support you need to commend that, because I think that's just absolutely amazing with what you're doing there. Um,
Thanks.
even going back on what you mentioned about with purpose as well. I am a big believer in guys having some kind of purpose, some sort of drive and motivation to help them to have some kind of success in life. And for you, I mean, I can only imagine that drive with growing your YouTube channel and your business to support your wife and your daughter was a huge motivation for you to succeed and just be able to show them, like, look what I've done. Look at how I've done this to help support us as a family. And even just as like an accolade to be able to show off to people and say, look what hard work and determination can do if you put yourself out there and you keep trying and stuff. And I really do hope that it's bringing you all the business and success that you deserve to help you with you and your family as well. So I think that's just absolutely amazing. And even with what I do with like doing like YouTube strategy stuff. So I mean, I've done the amount of YouTube dating coaches businesses that I've built on the YouTube platform. This is kind of this is like when you finally enter your adult stage in life, where now that you've passed 10,000 subs, now like life is really living for you. In a way, you'll find that you're going to have so many opportunities come your way now that you've actually hit 10,000 subs. So honestly, I really hope and wish you all the best with that. I hope it really takes off, and you'll find in no time at all that will probably double very, very quickly. There's something about when you hit 10,000, you start getting this snowball effect.
Even at 4,000, like all the opportunities started coming out of nowhere, which was kind of unexpected. I was like 20,000, I would probably expect that, but or maybe 50,000, 100,000, but 4,000 is where things were really taking off. So that
Yeah,
got
no,
kind of
I
crazy.
remember
But
with a few coaches. So like with Johnny, with Haley, with James Tusk as well at the time. Once everyone kind of got to that 5-digit number, there really was like this snowball effect, not just with like the views or with the subscribers, but certainly with the business, with the clientele as well. So yeah, I think that's absolutely amazing with what you're doing there. And then the other thing as well with what you were saying about with the professor and also with the purpose and the how did I don't know? Did you say it was psycho? Psycho? What was the word? Psycho.
So I'm no psychological expert, but he is a professor of psychology, and he's in
I couldn't think what the word was, but you said with two people.
psychiatric thing,
Yeah.
psychotherapy,
Okay.
Psychiatrist, it was like psychiatrist, was it?
psychiatry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you use the word about with guys if they need support from one another, they go out and they'll do like fishing and stuff. But you used like a really really cool word
Was it like shoulder
for
to
it.
shoulder or something?
Yeah, but you had like a real like it was a more like technical term for it. I can't think for the life of me what it was. It'll probably I'll
Oh,
be watching
damn.
it in the replay when you publish the video and be like, oh, that was it.
Well,
But I
you should
actually,
see the full interview. It was very enlightening, very fascinating.
yeah, honestly, like please do send it to me. I find this sort of like psycho social stuff in the industry absolutely fascinating, and certainly like dynamics um, of how human interaction works in general. But I actually completely agree with the guy, simply because my experiences of it has usually been like with, in fact, my best friend, who I actually also met through doing the pickup stuff, and was my wing for years. He's had personal things going on in his life, especially issues that he's got with his girlfriend, which I'll leave out. But whenever he's had struggles with things, or even for me as well, whenever we've turned to each other for support, we actually will either go round each other's and sit on the PlayStation and just play like computer games for hours, and whatever kind of the game is, there's always some like goal or mission or level to complete, and and we'll do the co-op for it, and we'll just get lost in playing these games. And a bit like, I don't know, if using an analogy of like
Mm.
like if our emotions were like a cloud, or like the weather, and it sort of comes along, you're in a bad mood and it's cloudy, but
You get immersed in
time
it,
kind of, yeah,
essentially.
and that's what we would do when we play our games together. Like it was just an escape from reality, and in a way it was our way to just let out whatever frustration, anger, stress, anxiety that we had. And we didn't need to talk about anything. We just, as long as we were
Exactly.
like playing a game and sitting next to each other, or sometimes we'll do like the online, because he doesn't live in London. He sort of lives outside of London, a bit much further away. Then we're still able to give that support to each other. But yeah, we don't always. I think guys don't realize they don't have to talk about their problems. They can just sit with someone else and talk about whatever, and that's absolutely fine. I think just having someone around you can be more than enough to, which maybe it sounds strange, but it can be more than enough to just help guys with whatever personal problems they've got.
Oh yeah, was it something along the lines of like there's an end result? So there's like fishing, you catch a fish maybe or something like that.
Yeah, or
So it's
there's
like
an element of mindfulness there, or just taking your mind off of the problem. Like, so like I've not done fishing, but I've known friends who've fished, and even if I were to imagine what it would be like to go fishing and just be sitting there, you've got pure silence all around you. If you're sitting by a lake where there's no cars driving by,
well, let
there's
me
no
tell you about
bustling
it. I
city.
did a few I did it in the summer, gringo summer. I'm in the southern hemisphere, so it's summer now, but northern hemisphere summer a few months back. I was doing a little bit of fishing. I didn't catch a damn thing that time. Well, I did. It just fucking unhooked itself, motherfucker. I would have fucking eaten that thing. But anyway, I'll describe like what the landscape was like. I was in, I think it was Indian Falls, Nova Scotia, Canada, and it's like there's a river, there's like a little kind of dam, and river is flowing. You can swim in it, you can stand in it because it's relatively shallow in some parts, and lined with fucking trees. And there's a like platform from above, like next to the dam, and you could go be under downstream from where the dam is, and that's where the fishing spot really is. And then we got to see an eagle fly by, those kinds of things, and just like take out a floaty and just sit in it and make sure you don't disappear down the river or anything like that. But that's how it is. First time I went fishing, I caught 9 fish, and it was just this very fun experience. And then you get to actually like barbecue it later, take it home, and there's a kind of like satisfaction that, just like how I just told you, I caught 9 fish. I was so fucking excited. First time I ever went fishing, caught 9 fish. That's an achievement right there. It's like the end result, the achievement. It's not even necessarily about the achievement, but the experience
Yeah.
can be enough in itself. And it was just the end result. You get to fill your stomach with something that you not necessarily created, but caught and achieved, something along those lines.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
a
it
beautiful
almost
thing.
gamifies overcoming whatever your personal problems are. Like, in fact, let me ask you then, when you were fishing, how did it make you feel during those moments for each fish that you were catching? Because I mean, fish don't essentially give in
Well,
to being caught. As soon as you've caught them
I caught
on
four in
the
one
bait.
go. So I think I had like 4 hooks on one line, and then I got four, and or something like there were two on one hook. It was something ridiculous. I got photos of it in Google Photos, but I caught like 4 fish in one pull, so it was just like God damn, this is crazy kind of thing. But yeah, it's pretty satisfying. I'm not a big fisher or anything like that. I only done it a few times, and
Mm.
I didn't do it when I was younger. But it's a great thing. Like first time I went fishing, there was a fisher boat that was coming back to the bay, and there was a cat on the boat. And it was just funny. It was just like, what's this little kitten doing on the boat? It's just like the pet of the Fisher family that was on there. Some woman showing us her little fucking kitten. Oh, you must love fishing. It's just like cats are scared of water, but it's like the fact that it's on a boat is kind of funny.
But it creates a memory, and in fact,
Mm.
even like how you told that story, I mean, it's worth noting, how enthusiastic you were about it, how it's sort of made you smile as you're thinking about, that struggles with catching the fish and how you did it, and the build up to getting to
As
the lake,
opposed
and even how
to,
you left.
like so last night I pulled this bitch and I just fucking fisted her and it was like so uninspired.
God, that's so
I'm not a
extreme.
great
Like, we've gone from
storyteller.
fishing to fisting. That was one extreme to the other there. But no,
Hey,
but I
there's only a
agree.
one letter difference.
That is true. That is true. That is true. But no, I mean, but I agree with that. That there really is something
Smells the
that
same.
gamifies it.
Smells the same.
Ugh. Ugh.
What the
You had
fuck?
to take it there. But no, I think though there really is an element of like you're creating either like a hyper focus or a tunnel vision away from any problems that you've got going on. And again, just having that support of someone with you as well, going on that gamified journey of overcoming a problem, which can also be kind of, I don't know if metaphorical is the right word, but there could be an element of catching that fish could be the equivalent of maybe a problem that you've got and how you've overcome that problem. With some of like the eye movement therapy that I've learned, it's interesting how the language that when people explain a problem that they've got, the language that they use with it and how everything in the description might have a meaning behind it as well. So catching a fish, bringing it back home might, and even just the struggle that you went through with catching the fish. I know we're using the analogy quite a bit here, but that there might be something that you could relate to where you also had a problem in your life that you needed to really like fight and struggle to overcome it, and you felt rewarded for doing that. So there is an element again of gamifying overcoming your problems and hurdles that you've got, and there's something to be said when you're not doing it alone either. When you've got someone who's there and you just don't feel alone. Maybe not even just having the support, but it's about not feeling alone going through something that you're dealing with.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts on this? We talked about quite a lot there.
No, I just want to, thank you for your story. It was, what can I say? It is like a very motivated story that you just told us and your current situation. So I really appreciate you sharing this with us for sure. And I have to say also, it was a great summarizing there as well when it comes to, summarizing what you just said as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed it when we dissecting piece by piece.
AI bot at the end is going to give a summary to this question. Cancer, fishing, and fisting. It's like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? ChatGPT? What's going on?
That's an impressive combination.
It's wild.
Very impressive combination.
Something I would like to say though, when it comes to like the hurdles the men have when it comes to this area, when it comes to dating and attracting women, I think in order to actually overcome it is number one, is to learn the right strategies and mindset. And as I said in the beginning, I don't believe that there is any secret techniques to do this. I believe that interpersonal communication skills, also known as social skills, is the way to go. Dating skills is just a fork of social skills. And if you get that right, and then now you're going to practice it, you're going to know the theory, and then you're going to practice it. There is a moment when you have to decide to be brave. You have to make a conscious decision to be courageous, and then start taking action to actually start talking with women you feel attracted to. That part most often struggle a lot of depression and men feeling down that is connected with that particular thing. If they can overcome that methodology and then actually go into action and using the right methods to actually getting results, your brain will automatically adapt to as an evidence that you're doing something great. And then you evolve. A lot of problems is disappearing. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of guys going to therapy without any real tools and strategies of how to actually solve the situation, only how to handle how they feel. And that is also a little bit wrong way to go about it when it comes to guys that feel like a failure because they can't attract and date women. So yeah, I hope it makes sense for you. I guess that you have the same experiences, but it's really first about doing it and then see how you feel after you get some results. Most of the time the problem disappears. I think for my clients, like 95% of my clients are cured after they're learning how to actually apply real conversational skills that is based on the academic faculty made into real practice, and then go and practice it. It's just a wonder for depression that have its roots on I can't attract women, I can't date women. That is how I see it. It's nothing much more than that, actually.
Alrighty, I'll lead into the next one. How do you suggest men find a balance between being emotionally vulnerable and maintaining confidence in dating? So while I will say quickly, I'm not going to die on this hill, but I'm kind of a very non-emotional person. My little opinion, and again, I'm not going to fucking argue or die on this hill, but definitely give your perspectives. I kind of find that emotional vulnerability isn't, I'm not going to say that it's a feminine thing that men can't do it. I just find that I don't see any kind of advantage, in a dating sense, at least, on that. But I don't even know what I'm saying there, but go ahead.
Okay, I can actually start here. Emotional availability or showing vulnerability, it depends on what kind of vulnerability you show. So for example, let's let me just give an example of a context. If you are really nervous because you are about to talk with a pretty girl at work or in your surroundings, and you go up to her and say, you know what, I'm quite nervous, but I still want to say hi. I am Michael, or I'm Ice. That is sort of a vulnerability that she will take into account. That will become positive. It's not a weakness. It's more a demonstration of you decided to be courageous. You decided to be brave. And even though you were very nervous of doing things, you did it anyway. You see? So that is one type of positive emotional availability. But then there is a lot of negative emotional availability as well. Behaviors that is unattractive, for example. Neediness. Guys that really, in some way admit to the woman that, you know what, I can't stand when you're talking to other guys. I just feel so threatened by it. That is a negative emotional availability. So it depends on what you choose, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of hinting at. Like, people can use emotional manipulation, but if we really go down the path of emotional vulnerability, I'm not gonna, last thing I would want to do is like say, I'm jealous or something like that. I'm not a very jealous person. I'm just giving an example. Like you can admit things, I suppose, but if you're going too into the deep end on emotional vulnerability, it can very much backfire, I suppose. Again, I'm not a very emotional person, but not everyone will take your concerns seriously sometimes, I imagine, but I don't know. That's just me.
No,
Many times they
I
have to be
agree.
expressed. Many times they have to be expressed pretty short and concise, though. I mean, if you go into rambling about your emotional vulnerability, I mean, it can be really going into a down spiral. So something good can actually turn something bad if you keep on going and going and going. If you would mention something pretty short and concise, that might give a strong impact. But keep talking about it could turn into a quite negative thing.
Yeah, and I think it just also comes through experience of knowing when it's okay to be vulnerable and when it's not, or when it is more appropriate. So, like for example, I mean, with Johnny passing over the last couple of weeks, and even with putting the tribute video together and making videos about it, I mean, I must admit, I mean, I've cried a lot, because he was a friend, he was someone who I knew very well and for a very long time, and it hit home knowing him being the fourth person, who'd taken his life, that I knew in my life. So, in a way, when people saw how I expressed that in my videos and in the tribute, people connected with it because they understood that it's a sad moment and there's nothing wrong with then guys being or showing that kind of vulnerability because everyone's connecting on and mourning and grieving in the same kind of way and over the same thing. Now, definitely, yeah, 100%, and I agree as well. Like, if you're in a relationship with someone, so if it's then certainly more on the dating side of things, uh, vulnerability can, or too much vulnerability can kind of show a guy to be very weak, and not very. I don't know how the best way to say it is, but he's not really demonstrating that he's a protector of her. If he's just sort of falling apart all the time, he needs to be essentially a role model, or demonstrate some kind of leadership to the women that he's around so that they feel protected by him. But I mean, if he's just like either crying or getting jealous all the time of her doing stuff, and even then how he maybe says it, and I'd probably even lean more into it's not always so much like what a guy says, it's usually how he says it, which can come across very weak as well. Then that can certainly be a huge make or break for how women can be attracted to a guy. Like if we're talking like you've gone on a date with someone, you've gone to the cinema and you've seen a movie and there's been a moment in it and you've got teary eyed, then I mean that's neither here nor there. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think I remember at the time uh, I was in a relationship and I saw the film Gladiator and I cried at the end when he's like walking through the fields and he's like touching the wheat as he's going to go and see his family and that brought memories of past family members who'd passed, you know. And I remember my girlfriend at the time looking at me like all teary eyed and
Well, th
uh,
these movies are
just
kind of
couldn't.
designed for that. And
Yeah,
Gladiator, like if you could cry at any movie as a man, like that is the movie to cry for, I suppose, because
yeah.
that's a very masculine movie if we're gonna talk about masculinity. But
Yeah, and you're
yeah, I
talking
love
about like family
Gladiator.
values in there as well, you know, and the connection and brotherhood that he's got. But you know, then there's kind of nothing wrong with that because a woman will look at you and be like, you know what, he is showing that he's got that emotional intelligence and understanding to be that open with and vulnerable with me in a moment like that. And then there'll probably even be a conversation as to why that was a vulnerable thing for the guy. And that would probably actually build attraction for him rather than destroy it. But then if you've got a girl who's going out, she wants to go partying with her friends, and he's like, no, I don't want you doing this. You know, don't leave me alone again. Like you said, you were going to see me.
Exactly.
Then it's absolutely, it's going to just, she's going to look at him and go like, what on earth is wrong with you? You know what? So again, but then if he could be very dominant with it, saying like,
Mm.
I don't want this at all. You do that, we're done. You know, there could be there's a
It can be a
very different
boundary.
stance. Yeah.
I see a lot of red pill content where they're kind of expressing the idea that if you're in a relationship and your girlfriend, your fiance or wife is going to a nightclub, like surely that's a red flag. I don't disagree with that. Like if you're gonna go to a nightclub or whatever as someone in a relationship, you should be going together, ideally. There can be like jealousy issues from people. Like I seen it myself where I had a girlfriend one time, she was into drugs. She was into like all kinds of bad things. She had no father figure. Her father was in prison, and this is what I realize now, having interviewed the psychologist at McGill University. Um, there seems to be a pattern. I'm no expert in this, in like nuclear family or single parent homes and people with mental health issues. I don't know to what extent, but it did make sense based on the things that I have seen from friends, relationships, and whatever. But anyway, this particular girlfriend I had for some set of time, she had no father figure. He was in prison. Um, my girlfriend would go to a club without me and bad things would happen. Like, oh, she's into drugs. Now she's in a mental hospital or things
Mm.
like that. These red pill concerns, that one in particular, don't have your girlfriend go to a nightclub without you. I would agree with that. I would be on board with that because I have seen how real bad shit has happened as a result of that advice basically not being followed. I
Mm.
have seen where in cases where someone's in a relationship and then the girlfriend maybe goes to a nightclub without the boyfriend, and then she actually gets drugged by in her drink and raped by multiple men, and she can't remember a damn thing. And then that just ruins everything for everyone. So that's a particular example there, but there are boundaries, there are emotional vulnerabilities, there's paranoia. I don't know how we could really map out concerns and categorize them. Uh, it could be extremely messy or perhaps not even make sense, but
Mm.
that's kind of like how I'm thinking about this.
Yeah. Yeah. People just don't communicate enough what their boundaries are. Like at the end of the day, if people are are in relationships or if they're married and stuff, if they've got the honesty and the trust and definitely the boundaries there of what each of them will tolerate, and certainly give and take within the relationship, then then people can kind of go and do what they want. But when there's the cracks there and you don't quite trust someone, or someone does put themselves in an environment or a situation where either they could be taken advantage of or they could take advantage of the situation, then yeah, absolutely. That's where things do genuinely fall apart. And I've known many dating coaches have trust issues with women that they date because they feel, or that they know themselves what they're like when they're going out and meeting more women, whether it be through like when I film for them over the years, or if they're just doing it on their own accord because they're teaching their clients, that they get that paranoia that they just think like, oh, well, if I could put myself in the situation that I could cheat or I could do something that would upset my partner, then they do start thinking, oh, well, maybe my partner might end up going out and cheat on me, or things could end up happening. I suppose it's like a chicken and egg scenario that can play out there. That then as soon as one person doesn't trust the other person, then that person doesn't trust that person. Then yeah, it just sort of spirals.
You know what? Sometimes as a man, really, and then there's something that maybe you have to, guys have to work up this confidence in terms of actually being able to approach and talk with women in general. Once you can do that and you actually find a woman of your life that you really want to build brick by brick with, but you have to come with the perspective of like, if she want to do something that doesn't work for you, then you're just going to tell her that, you know what, I wish you the best of luck in your life. I really, really do. But this is not for me. And I'm going to move on now. Mm. You have to be a little bit of that kind of mindset. You have to be the man to come into that kind of level. And one of the worst is not trusting your girlfriend. You cannot live in that kind of life, basically. So many times what I truly believe is that you have to assume that she is faithful. You have to assume that she is for you until you really see some evidence that that is not the case. Because if you're going to go around and start worrying all the time, that itself is going to make you unattractive many, many, many times. You see, so same again, once you see that, oh, she was not faithful, she actually met other guys, then you have to be coming back to the main basic perspective of, you know what, I wish you maybe now not the best of luck, but you know what, I still wish you a good life. This is not for me, and I'm going to move on from here on. You have to come into that to that mindset. I know it's easier said than done, but, and this is a big but, if a guy is having the ability to approach women and to actually have a normal, real conversation with women that makes them bond together and feel attraction towards each other, if you have that ability, you will always have that in your back of your head, that if you will come into that situation, you will just thank for yourself, you will just thank for the time, and you're going to move on. I think guys that are the most confident have that kind of mindset when it comes to women they date. It's not saying that they would cheat or something like that, like, oh, it's no problem, I can just get another one. I don't mean that. They actually give, like a real try to build something with that woman. But when it comes down to it, men that have that composure are the ones that are the most confident. That is what I've seen. What about you guys? What do you think about that?
No, I agree with that. I mean, again, having boundaries is an important factor, really. It just prevents a guy from being walked over.
So there's one thing also I want to say is that women that really likes you, that really feel attracted to you, they rarely cheat on you. Really. So the level of loyalty a woman has for you is determined by how much she likes you. That is almost like a formula that I've seen. there are a lot of women that maybe don't like or feel super attracted to the guy, or doesn't feel so much attraction to the guy. That is a red flag. That woman will almost always be able to cheat or be able to go another direction because the fundamental is not there. So in today's world, as we talk, remember when we spoke with Pearl, the podcast we had with Pearl, when I mentioned that a lot of guys approve women instantly. When we as men see attractive women, our neurotransmitters in the brain is just skyrocket that is connected with attraction, sexual attraction, bonding, and love. We just accept them directly based on the visual. Almost everything is accepted. That is how we feel. That is what our brain chemistry are telling us, neuroscientifically. When it comes to women, it doesn't really work that way. Women that see beautiful men, handsome men, men with money, men with status, can be indicators of interest, but the holistic attraction is not there. And how can we actually mimic the attraction level that women feel for us as men, as we feel for women? Well, the only thing I've seen in the science of neuroscience or the science of interpersonal communication is when you are having a conversation with her in depth, only in depth. That is when they have seen that all those attractive neurotransmitters is getting released in her brain, is when she is actually having a real conversation with someone who's actually listen in depth. That is how we can actually mimic those attraction switches, so to speak. But when I asked my mentor, Professor Alexander Lyon, he has a YouTube channel as well. He's a professor in communication at New York State University. He's my main advisor. When I spoke with him, he said that maybe 1 in every 50 person would have some level of listening skills that is proficient to take things into depth. 49 people would not have it. So when we look at men now, looking at women and approving them directly based on their looks, and then we as men cannot communicate attractively. So our level of attraction between men and women is like huge imbalanced. That is why we see these kind of problems massively. What I noticed with real communication skills applied in the field of dating, interpersonal conversational skills, over time, the attractive conversations going to increase the attractiveness level women feel for the man pretty steady. And eventually they will be matched. And it's not until they are pretty much matched when you're going to see beautiful relationships. But today, of course, probably you have seen as well, is like the relationships today, specifically if the woman is someone who have a lot of male attention, the woman have that much power in the relationship and the man have this one. Because the man just accepts her directly. Holistically, she is super attractive and she have everything that he needs. But he might look quite good, he might be funny in some way, but he didn't create the matching attraction through the conversation in order to match the level of her attractiveness. And that is one of the biggest problems I've seen in the world of, in the history of men, basically. And it is at most today. So I think that if men is going to solve this problem overall in the world, men have to learn how to communicate so they can become more attractive, so we can actually level the playing field between men and women in attractiveness level. What do you guys say about that when you really think about it?
Yeah, like I find that stat kind of crazy where you say effectively 2% of people can, only 2% of people can listen in depth. I'm a very bad listener naturally. And it was a problem for me when I was younger because I was like, oh, what's the assignment again or whatever. And then like I'll get yelled at or something. And then, yeah, it just reinforces me in that position to not ask questions. And then it just like spirals out of control where I listen even less because now I'm afraid to even interact if I'm just gonna get yelled at, that kind of thing. That's something I take into parenting. With my daughter, if she's like ever like if I take the same situation where she asked me to repeat myself, I have therefore learned from my own childhood that I shouldn't give her the same response to discourage her from asking me questions or asking for clarification, for example. Couldn't think of any other examples, but yeah, listening, I'm a very bad listener, naturally. And now that I do these 3 hour panels since last year, I would say it has somewhat improved, but this is probably the only way I have kind of somewhat attempted subconsciously to listen better because if I'm going to have 3 hours of panels or interviewing, then I have to listen. So outside of that, I don't think there's anything I have had in my life which has kind of pushed me in the direction of listening better. So I don't think it's something that comes naturally for people who need to improve it. So I kind of wonder like how people can actually improve upon that because aside from this
So,
panel, I don't think there's any other way I could have listened better over time.
no, so if anyone goes to communication university, like a university, and they go into the cognitive lab at any university, Harvard University, for example, and then they go to like, okay, I'm going to learn to listen. Okay, but it's just not listening. You need to know what you're going to listen to. So I'm going to give, like, this is part of what I'm actually teach as well. So one of the keys, and this is free stuff now I'm going to give on your channel, is that when every of you guys that are looking now in this video, this podcast, if anyone says something, they always leave cues in a sentence. Always leave cues. So many of those cues could also be adjectives like good, excited, tired, or whatever. Those adjectives, specifically those adjective cues, always need a clarification question because we don't really know what that actually means. So in order to actually being able to carry on with the conversation, for example, if you're going to ask someone a question, let's say I'm going to ask you, what do you think of New York? And then you're going to tell me what you think about New York
Oh
in one
no.
sentence.
Oh no. No, I'll give you a fucking rant about New York. Fuck New York. Fuck no, I have a love-hate relationship with New York. It's like it's one of those things where if you're in New York, you're like half the time you're like, fuck this, everything's so far away if you're staying in outside of Manhattan, for example. Or like it's so annoying to get around. I wish it was more efficient, like Tokyo or London, let's say, because the geography is so arbitrary. It's like here's an island which is good strategically for the Dutch to land up to colonize, and here's Long Island, and then there's Staten Island. Staten Island makes more sense for New Jersey. Why the fuck is it associated with New York? And there's one bridge from Staten Island to Brooklyn. But then where's the bridge to Manhattan? Like the city just makes no sense in the layout. I'm fucking ranting now, but when you leave New York, when you leave a big city, because I'm from buttfuck middle of nowhere where it's just fucking trees, old people, and nothing much else. And that basically
People
summarizes
having
most of
bum
it.
sex as well.
Occasionally, uh, only on Tuesdays.
Oh, if we just pause here. So I will not ask any follow-up question here, but what you said there now is like what you mentioned in that sentence was like New York is a mess. You mentioned Tokyo. You would like it to be like Tokyo. You would like the public transport system to be better. And then now you actually living in the middle of nowhere with lots of trees and basically forest. You see, suddenly I have actually maybe 3 to 4 cues to start talking about. So instead of going on and start talking about other things, let's just take things a little bit more into depth. So, for example, where you are now, you are like in the middle of nowhere where there's just trees. I'm curious. Now I can ask a close-ended question by saying, do you like it, or do you like it, or do you hate it? What would you say?
So, just to twist this a little bit, where I am right now, I'm in a desert, so there are no fucking trees. But where I'm from, a fuckload of trees. So it's a contrast. But in general, it's like what I'm saying is when you're from the middle of nowhere, and then because I traveled a lot up to this point. My daughter is 4 years old, and she has been to 4 continents. But essentially, being from a small place and then moving to a much bigger place for opportunity reasons, for financial reasons, and so on, well, career reasons. Once you're in the big city, it's like, fuck, there's a lot to do. I gotta walk fast, and everything becomes much faster. And then once you're back in the little place, things are slower, and it's like you have ADHD or something. Like, oh, I want to do something, but there's nothing to fucking do here. And that kind of mindset kicks in. It's like, oh, I'm a New Yorker now. What the fuck is happening to me? Because I picked up like the London mindset, the New York mindset, having spent time in those places. And now that I'm in Lima, and this is my third time living here, I somewhat have a Lima mindset, although there are still parts that I don't understand. Like you see me walking the street, I'm walking quickly because London and New York taught me that. So yeah, anyway, it's like once you leave a big city, you get to appreciate some things. Like now I can actually see the stars. I had spent years in the big city, and I haven't seen the stars for fucking years. And now it's fucking beautiful. Something that I didn't really appreciate when I was younger because it's just there, whatever. And then once you're the other side of the coin is because there's less stuff to do, it can become a little bit of a drag and a bit boring and a bit isolated. But I don't know. Something along those lines.
Yeah, okay. So basically now you I mean, not so many people are that expressive as you are. So most people will just, answer with 2-3 words, and then they will be quiet. And then you just take one of these 3 words and then, oh, can you help me to understand that better? Or I would like to know more what you meant with that particular thing. So for example, like when you said not like Tokyo, okay, help me to understand that better. What did you mean with not like Tokyo?
Then I would just like go on a rant about how Tokyo is so fucking great.
Yes, exactly. And then I'm going on and listening to
I
more
got a lot
cues,
of stuff to say about Tokyo.
to really understand, your
Fucking love
perspective, where you're
Tokyo.
coming from.
So good.
No,
Okay,
so
let's go back.
basically, so the value here for everyone who's actually listening is that if you want to practice listening skills, start with listen to the sentence anyone are saying, because in that sentence there will always be something to ask about. There will always be something to explore. Don't force yourself to stay. Don't move into other topics. Listen exactly to what word was said in that sentence. Take that and explore further down. Many times to explore, a specific word, for example, like I'm excited, I think it's good, I think it's beautiful. Let's say we use beautiful. Take that word and say and ask them, by the way, when you say beautiful, what do you actually mean? Or you mentioned good. Can you help me to understand that better? And so on. That is how you start taking things to depth. Most guys just continue to talk on the surface level area and just continue to ramp it. They never go into depth, and they become boring, and it doesn't go to influence anywhere. as long as you start asking about those cues, that is when people actually start think. And while they start thinking, something happening in their brain, and when they're expressing, neurotransmitters are getting released, because now we're talking in a different conscious level. So that kind of neurotransmitter release is what you want with women, because that is what creates attraction. Emotional connection and relationship building is something that is real, that has been studying for so long time by all the universities, and we should actually stick with what we know. So that is also something I want to emphasize. Stick with the academic stuff made into pure practice.
Yeah, no, I actually I agree with that. And what is interesting is usually guys who have a lot more social anxiety when they get started, they're like constantly thinking what the next question is that they want to ask, and then they don't tend to listen to what the women are saying because they're like, oh, I need to build attraction. Let me ask this next question. You know, they're not thinking about exploring something that she said, even if they say like, "Oh, where are you from?" and she says, "Oh, I'm from Spain," and they don't think about asking like, "Oh, well, what brought you here? You know, what sort of things do you enjoy, or can you tell me a bit more about Spain? I've never been before, or something, or what are Spanish people like?" The fact that they don't tend to explore that, and instead they're thinking like, "Okay, right, I've asked her about where she's from. I wonder now if I can start asking her for her phone number, or what is her job? What does she do?" And instead they probably fall into more of an interview kind of mode. Just literally they've got like a prep of questions ready in their mind. They don't care about what the answers are, but they believe, maybe, I don't know if it's something maybe like coaches have taught to them, but certainly for them it might be just something that they believe that if they say this list of questions, then they've built attraction and they'll get a phone number. And of course, it doesn't quite work like that. So yeah,
Absolutely not.
100%. Yeah, if they're not going that bit deeper, which maybe once guys do find a little bit more confidence or they feel a bit more grounded in their interactions, then definitely, I think that's usually the moment guys do tend to start exploring a bit more, because they do kind of gain that curiosity of like, "Oh, well, I've never met a Spanish person before. Oh, tell me more about it." Then suddenly they do go that bit deeper. It might not be much deeper, but at least they are trying to create some kind of bond or connection with a person they're speaking to, because they're just showing interest in them.
They are absolutely, they are empathetic tools that is very, very effective to really enhance the understanding between the guy and the girl. So, for example, like if I would ask you, what do you think about, you from London, right?
I have indeed, yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think of London, living there?
Well, it's certainly a very interesting place. I don't
Fuck
think we.
London.
Yeah, well, you can say that. I can't say that because I'm from London. We're not allowed to hate our own city, um, but no, it's an interesting place. Most people are moody. They don't like having conversations. Everyone's stressed. The weather's always crap, and people's emotions tend to be connected to the weather. That when the weather's good, everyone's really happy and content and wants to socialize, and when the weather's miserable, then like all hell might as well break out on Earth.
Okay, I see. But I'm curious, when you said London is interesting, I'm curious, can you help me to understand that interesting more?
Sure,
Have
yeah,
you
I'd say
been?
the people, the culture. There's so much to see. I mean, I think Londoners don't tend to appreciate it enough compared to what maybe people who aren't from London get to experience. I think it's one of those like grass is greener moments. Like you don't really appreciate it because you're just in the surroundings all the time. But once you tend to leave it and then you come back to it, I think then you find that passion for it again.
But when you said it's a lot to see, what comes to your mind exactly?
Oh, the landmarks. Um, there's a ridiculous amount of landmarks and history attached to the city. So
Okay,
there's
that
there's
is
enough to
how.
keep anyone busy.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm thinking about London, I mean, that's like the center of Europe, basically. It's like the capital country of Europe. And with the historical history, I mean, it's just mind blowing. It's just mind blowing. So, if I understand you correctly, actually, interesting and London means basically the culture and the landmarks. That is like one of the two heaviest thing that you like about London. Is that correct?
I would say, yeah, it's definitely up there. Besides the food as well.
And the food as well. When you say food, what do you think about exactly? What is the
What
first
do
thing that
I
comes to mind
what do I think about food? I think
in
about
Trying
London?
so hard to
a lot
hold
about
back. I
food.
got so many comments.
No, but
Um,
so you get so you get my point. What I did was like I just take what you said, and I want to. I'm
yeah, and
genuinely curious
you
about what you say,
extrapolate it and expand it. Yeah.
and then I'm going to make sure that I understand what you actually meant. I want to
Mm.
understand what you think of London. You think London is interesting, but what does that mean exactly? Okay, so two things. Now I know three things, four things. Okay, so the culture, the landmarks, lot of sea. A lot of sea means landmarks, the historical, places and monuments, and people. Even though they are very moody, depending on the weather, they are still great people. That is the impression I got from you. Am I correct
Yeah,
here?
depending on the day that you go into London, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say that.
Yeah. So
Only
and
only
then
All
on
the time of the
Tuesdays.
year.
Only
and
on
then I creating
Tuesdays during the
this.
summer.
But then I creating this, like bonding is like, okay, fine. You know what? I'm going to make this conversation about you.
Mm.
You. I'm
Yeah,
not. I'm
and
not going to
you get
like
on the
talk about
same
me so much.
wavelength as me as well by at least being that bit curious about what because I've certainly noticed when people do try and say things or explain things, they don't always go into enough depth with it. It can be very surface level because they don't know if they were meant to go in depth with an answer, which is why then it's great to be able to flush out more from someone and say, "Oh, can you tell me more about it?" Or like, "Oh, what do you mean by that? Can you explain this more?" So yeah, of course, then it just opens it up and it gives you even more. We call it ammunition topics or topics of ammunition. That as soon as someone gives you a few of those like things that you can explore and say, "Oh, tell me more about this or that," then yeah, it gives you that ammunition of things that you can go, "Oh, well, I can now pick and choose my topics rather than standing here going like, what am I going to say to her next?" Um, and then you can explore the topic that you kind of resonate with the most because certainly there'll be topics that you might then go like, I don't know anything about, and then you ask me about it. And then, in fact, actually, what can build a connection is by even openly saying, like, you know what, I don't know much about London. Can you tell me more about it? And that actually also gives someone the opportunity to open up and share their knowledge and experience. And even then, probably even throw in like a story or two as well, because that's usually where like the best opportunities and rapport can be built.
Absolutely. And specifically, if you can tailor the questions that you want to know what she think of London from the perspective of her relationship to London. You see?
Mm.
So it's like, I'm curious, what would you say is like the best thing with London? If you would have to say one thing, you just start with that thing. She starts thinking, the people, maybe she says, the people. Okay. When I'm thinking about London, I'm thinking like a global place with people all over the place, all over the world. I'm curious, when you say people, I want to know more. Tell me more about it. Now, what happens is that she has to suddenly go into this conscious mode to really think about what am I thinking here exactly. She starts thinking, and then she expresses herself. That is liquid gold because that is when she feel at best in conversations. She expressed that to you. She will laugh a little bit about what she thinks. She's a little bit unsure how you will react, and you really, really listen to what she says. And then, let's say she said a bunch of stuff, and then you just go into the twist of summarizing or paraphrasing. Let's say summarizing. I'm saying that, okay, so if I understand you correctly, you said first that you like London, but what you actually like is this, and this. Am I following you here? whatever comes out from her mouth, if she say yes, then you made a hit, you made a home run. If she say no, not exactly, then you just tell her, correct me. She will correct me, and then you will know. And what happens after that? Now you go into the area of reciprocity in attraction. There's a psychological statement, a psychological way of doing things. Reciprocity in attraction is when you start admitting things like, you know what? I really like you. The way you see London, which also in some way is how you see the world, is something that I feel attracted to. You are really attractive. Now, what happens now is that you're showing her that you're liking her for real. And what happens in the theory of reciprocity is, what happens is that her brain is more or less wired to like it back. You see? So we tend to like people that like us. It becomes like that. And we can achieve that reciprocity in attraction when we go into that depth and telling her that we like her based on context. When we look at women, we got those neurotransmitters released in the brain anyway, so we like her directly, but women don't, you see? So if you see a woman that is really attractive and she shows somewhat of interest towards you, you will just fall for it. As a man, you're just like, oh my God, I'm in love with her, basically. Just the smallest interest that triggers men directly, specifically if she's that attractive. But if we're doing something back, just by looking at her and smiling or something like that, doesn't give that impact. We don't obtain we tend to like people that like us. She can do it, but we can't do it. We have to do it in conversation, in depth, and then admit, and then she will realize that that guy actually likes me. And you know what? I like him back. So that is like the whole concept of emotional connection and relationship building, taken from the academic science made into pure practice in the dating scene. This part here is not only for dating. This is for negotiation. This is for psychotherapy and all other professional
What was
fields.
that? I don't know if you saw it. There was like a thumbs up thing that like appeared.
Yeah. I know. Sometimes Zoom has this one. I don't know.
Oh,
but you get my
sorry,
point, right?
I'd never seen that before. No, sorry, no, yeah.
No. Sometimes it's actually, you know, I don't know why Zoom is doing that, but it does sometimes. But all in all, you get my point. Yeah, it's
yeah.
That's what I believe is the key. Men have to learn this, really. And one thing that I'm a little bit allergic about is like self-claim theories. Like, yeah, this works for me, so it should work for other people. Well, being able to have conversations and actually influence women is based more than a mere thought or your own personal experience. This is something that has to go into the scientific research arena in order to actually see what actually happens when we're having conversations, so we can give tangible advices to, you know, to people who want to learn this. Okay, a shout out to Marcus that used to be on this channel, for example. I think that Marcus, I don't know if you know who that is, but he been on this channel for quite some time, and he has sometimes hard to express what actually works, but I can see what works. He's a great listener. He's really listen and calibrating on what she says and then act thereafter. And that is something that you cannot really teach other people, because that is what you are good at. But if you don't know how to teach people how to listen, you cannot use your own way of doing things, because you don't really know what you're doing. If you're a good listener without training, you don't know that you're a good listener. You just are. And then you're doing some things that works wonderful for you. And then you try to teach other guys the same thing, but it doesn't work for them because the other guys can't listen in the same way. You see, so a lot of missing pieces exist in those methods. I think we need to build a solid foundation. Anyway, what do you think?
So what do you think about what's your favorite thing about London? Well, it has like 5 airports, so it's easy to leave. But anyway,
you mean
just
escape?
a fact. Exactly.
I think you mean escape. It's not leave.
Yeah, but
it's escape.
But it's easy to leave. That means that you don't like London, and it's easy to leave. Can also be connected. The airport can be, your relationship to airport is that you are probably traveling then. You either want to travel or you have to travel.
The fact
So
that
I
I
will just pivot on
wanted
that.
to answer this question when I'm not the one who was asked it is a testament to the fact that this process of listening and asking the right kind of questions is intriguing enough for people to really want to answer it. When you were talking there about what you think of this and that, I was holding back so many fucking comments because I had so much to say, whereas normally I wouldn't have so much to say. So that's just something that's an observation I wanted to put out there. But anyway, I got to wrap this up. Any final comments on this?
Oh, I agree with everything of that, and that it is it's a fundamental skill that everyone should be adopting. Just simple conversation skills. It's not a select few that only learn it. I mean, it's everyone who can learn it. It's just if people are willing to learn to actively listen and remove whatever sort of social conditioning that they've got that is telling them like, oh no, I shouldn't ask these particular questions, or I shouldn't go that bit deeper with investigating stuff with someone. I think the best seducers and the best coaches that I know, or guys who get results, are the ones who genuinely just show interest in another person. They actively listen. They also share their own personal information. I don't know if you've heard of something called open loops, creating open loops in conversations. That's something that I personally love doing.
What is that exactly? I heard it before, but I don't exactly know what it means.
Oh, well, I'll tell you about it later. I'll tell you about it later. Right. No, that's being just tongue in cheek. So the point with an open loop is that you are creating genuine curiosity in a topic, and then you don't answer it. You actually answer it later on. So you're getting someone then to hold on to this question or this curiosity that they had about this topic. And then it means later on you can go back to talking about it. So where we were talking about London, you were asking me about with London, and then, you know, maybe like with the food and the landmarks and stuff, then I might tease a little bit about with food, but then change the topic to something completely different. But you're still genuinely curious of knowing about my favorite things to eat in London, because maybe you're going to come to London. Maybe you want to go to some of like really cool restaurants in London, and you're wondering where I might suggest. So
you're hiding in the curiosity, essentially.
Yeah, so you're kind of holding on to it, and the beautiful thing is you can actually do that with a few topics at a time. It's not just, all right, she's holding on to a topic, right? I'll hold it for a bit, but you can do that with all sorts of things, and even with like seduction, you can do that as well. It's where like a coach might say something like, "Oh, I'll tell you about it later." If you're being a good girl, I might tell you about it later, and then she's going like, "Oh, I want to know the answer to this," you know. So there's certainly different levels to having conversations and certainly building seduction, but wholeheartedly, I agree. Like everyone should, at the very least, just learn to be curious of the person that you're speaking to, and ask questions. Be genuinely interested in finding out something. And an exercise even that I really like doing, even not just for myself, but even when I work with guys, is to say to them, like, when you're going out to approach, and this is great really for beginners, but when you're going out to approach, you're not allowed to ask for the phone number until you found out 3 interesting things about the girl. Just ask her 3 interesting things that pretty much justifies you wanting to ask her out. And then if you're unsure how to ask for the number, you can even say at the end as like a summary of those things, because it's also great for you to learn to actively listen and remember what she's mentioned. Then you can end up saying to her, like, you know what? I think you're really cool. I like the fact that you're into London. I like the fact that you're really into eating food, and that you know all these cool places to go and hang out. You know what? I got to take you out on a date sometime. What's your number? It's just
absolutely. I love that part, because you mentioned James Tusk. I worked with James Tusk before. I was his main conversational coach for some
Oh,
time.
nice. Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
I was also in his, a couple of infields in his before his channel got, banned.
Oh, what,
So
removed?
so yeah, so James Tuss was, all into this idea of empathetic conversations that I provided for him then. So through him, I had a lot of both on Zoom and group coaching and also live coaching, teaching guys real conversational skills. And those were not
Nice.
the London day game, Tom Torero style routine-based stack routines. No, this was actually real academic stuff made into practice. And that just made wonders for basically everyone. But what I want to say is, yeah, what I want to say is like, this is not something that you're going to get good at just by reading, like reading about it, knowing it theoretically. You have to practice it. So it's more of a practice exercise than a theoretical exercise. Actually, people don't understand that. So two things. One thing is you need to create a habit of listening. What happens when you are having a habit of listening is that all the cues is coming to your ears without thinking. Now the cognitive flexibility comes in where you ask questions about the things that you hear automatically. Oh, by the way, when you say that and that, what do you think about exactly? Oh, by the way, you mentioned this. I'm curious. What made you think that way? How can you think that way? Or whatever you come across. But you need to be able to listen to all the cues in the first, and you need to practice to have a habit of listening to cues first. Once you have that, then things are going to be much easier, and now you can really fulfill your mastery of conversations. Really, it's all about the listening skills first. It's like the big hurdle to come across, and then yeah. You mentioned many times active listening. This is actually something that we use in academia a lot. Active listening. It's like a way of listening. Some people say empathetic listening. Some people say reflective listening. You say active listening. I'm just curious where you got that word from.
Well, active listening. I think it's just a London thing, just how we say it. I think yeah, I mean, I've been in the dating industry for so long now. I know. I think you just, and I spend also a lot of time around like psychologists and hypnotherapists and stuff. So there tends to be a bit of an osmosis of just picking up language off of people, and sometimes that language or the words kind of evolves into something new over the years, but everyone still knows what you mean when you say a certain word. But yeah, I think for me, active listening, like when I say to someone or explain active listening, yeah, they pretty much understand inherently what I'm talking about. Even with me being from Essex, usually people kind of get it.
All right.
Alrighty, thanks guys for joining the Inner Game special. I really wanted to put this on in the aftermath of what's been happening, especially with Johnny Berba's death being announced. He's not the first, not even the second. So that's why I wanted to put this in for personal reasons too. Everyone's human, everyone has problems, and to have problems is only human. It's just different the kind of problems we have. We may not be in the same boat, but we might be in a similar storm. And essentially, these things are important because it's one thing to go out and game for fun and make money, fuck bitches. It's great to chase certain goals, but it's also necessary to have everything in order, for lack of a better sentence. If that ever makes sense. But thanks guys for joining. If you guys want to check out the channels, all the links are in the description. Catch you guys on the other side and leave your questions in the comments. I think next month we should be having a social circle game special. This is only our second special. Previously we had an Asian special, a bunch of Asian dating coaches, and then me, because I'm 1% Mongolian. Thank you, Genghis Khan. So there's my qualification there for hosting the Asian dating coach panel. I want to do an African special. My justification being the host is technically we all come from Africa, but what the fuck am I talking about now? But anyway, next month, hopefully we're going to put on the Social Circle Games special, which ideally will have Justin Mark. I was just with him yesterday. Justin Waller, Michael Sartain, Sam Matheson, perhaps Sterling Cooper, and various more. See you guys on the other side.